All right, I'm going to start speaking. So I don't know if everyone's done or not, but I think we need to get going on this. Well, first, let me thank everybody for showing up tonight to the public hearing for the Gorham Connector. The partners of Gorham, the town of Gorham, town of Scarborough, city of South Portland, and the city of Westbrook, as well as Maine DOT and Maine Turnpike Authority. Really thank everyone for coming out this evening to talk about this project. The amount of people in this room here to talk about the connector and congestion in this region just shows how important this is for everybody. So maybe I can advance the slides here, maybe not. So those are all the partners here as part of this project. If you would, Ray, advance to the next one. So here's a little bit of background. The municipal partners are going to give you an overview of how we got here. This did not start with a road. This started with looking at congestion west of Portland and how to make it better for the communities in this area. So roughly 20 years ago, we went to the legislature, the 4 municipalities, and asked for relief for congestion. Through that process, I'm not going to go through all the studies, but there was a lot of looking at not only road capacity, but land use and transit. Those 3 things together is what's needed to address congestion. One item alone will not do it. That's what the studies have said, and that's what we continue to study now. The next portion, we're going to do the municipal partners, going to talk a little bit more. Then we're going to turn it over to HMTB to talk about all the work that's gone into to talk about the alignment for the connector and all the work that we've done regarding transit. And right that, I'll turn it over to Tom Hall in Scarborough.
Thank you, Tom. So I'm not going to read this slide here. You can read it for yourself. I just want to provide a little bit of color and context, if you will. I've had the pleasure of being Scarborough's town manager since 2008 and have, during my entire tenure, in one capacity or another, been involved in this conversation. And what's remarkable to me is that over those 16 years, I've had countless elected officials come and go, yet I've had, excuse me, is that better? I was just remarking that I've been involved with this during my entire tenure, about 16 years with Scarborough. And one of the things that's remarkable is that there's been a sustained interest as elected officials come and go. The constant is the fact that Scarborough and other adjoining communities are really dealing with crippling traffic on a day in, day out basis. And just the sort of mobility and safety concerns that we have in our area of North Scarborough are only getting worse. And I think my municipal colleagues can share similar experiences. I suspect many of you in this room know this far better than I do. You live it and in those areas and deal with that traffic on a daily basis. So this conversation is really going on for about 35 years, the last 20 of which really in earnest. And tonight, I'm just really encouraged to see all these folks here. I've been doing this kind of work long enough to appreciate that you really need to get a project to a point where there's something to react to. And I think we are at that point. We actually have a proposed road on the face of the earth. And this is all about getting awareness, getting input, and helping shape that as we move forward and consider what the options and alternatives are. So from our perspective, it's really been this sustained interest in solving safety and mobility problems on local roads. And that, let's face it, these roads were never built to handle the sort of volume of traffic that they are asked to do. And these problems aren't new. They're decades old. And again, they're not getting any better. And, part of the interest I've had professionally in this project is really the approach taken, is really solution. We didn't start with that. In fact, I'm really proud of the work we've done at the municipal level to encourage the Turnpike Authority and their consultants to really understand alternatives, study them fully, and really all of that work gets us to the point of wanting to share these details with you. So with that, I don't want to belabor the point. I want to invite my colleague Jerry Bryant from Westbrook up to perhaps share a bit more context from Westbrook's experience.
Thank you, Tom. My name is Jerry Bryant. I'm currently city administrator, excuse me, of the city of Westbrook. I am new to this group right now, the advisory team. If you're not aware of it, the former mayor of Westbrook moved on to another position in the town of Gray. And one of the parting gifts he gave me was to take his seat on this board. So it's about 3 weeks I've been affiliated with this. However, I'm not new to this issue. The issue of trying to enhance the efficiency, the safety, and the livability of the areas that provide through traffic. Certainly Westbrook is used to be a poster child for through traffic. Now, certainly Gorham is catching up with us in that category, but it's basically looking at the best way to get people who are going in the east-westerly direction to and from the center of the urban area, which includes South Portland and Westbrook and Portland. And so the purpose of this evening, for me certainly, and I think for all the members of the board, is to hear what people have to say, hear what questions they have, hear what concerns they have, hear what suggestions they might be able to offer. Tried to have a good chunk of information available to you. One of the complaints I've heard from my spouse is that every time she sees a map or some sort of a rendering in the newspaper or online, it's so small you can't read it. You can't figure out what the lines are and where it is. So she asked me to just take some pictures of the big graphics and bring them home to her so she can try to figure out where they're proposing to put this road. But again, the purpose, certainly for me and certainly for the people who share the advisory committee with me, is to hear from people, hear ideas, hear thoughts, hear concerns, because we want to incorporate everything into this planning process and hopefully come up with an ultimate solution that helps address all of the concerns related to getting an easterly-westerly direction through Gorham, through Westbrook, through South Portland, and in a way that is acceptable to everybody, particularly those living along those routes.
So good evening, everybody. My name is Paul Godfrey with the firm of HNTB. We are a consultant, the Maine Turnpike Authority. And on behalf of the authority, our municipal partners, Maine DOT, excited to be here this evening to share with you some of the information that we have developed to date. On the screen in front of you is a slide titled Facts About the Project. One of the things as we read comments, as we receive comments, as we hear comments, as we read information from other places, we believe there might be some misunderstandings about the information we're bringing forward. So I want to share some of that with you now. You may agree at the end of this to completely disagree with what we say. That's okay. Our job, our charge tonight is to share with you the thorough and rigorous analysis that we have done to date, and to give you our perspective on where we're at. Nothing today that we are presenting is final. However, a fair amount of work has gone into it, and it should be a fair amount of work. There's a lot of things in play and a lot of things that are to be presented for you to get some information around and better understand the project. So let's talk about some of those things that we think might be misunderstood. Tom Poirier said it when he started off this presentation. This project is not just a choice between a road and transit. It is not. And we're going to share a lot about why we think both the road and transit and land use can really work better to make the best possible outcome. This is not just a recently advanced idea. Tom and Jerry talked about the fact that this challenge that we've been trying to address around safety and mobility has been ongoing for decades. This is not the Turnpike Authority acting alone. You'll hear the direction, the request that the authority has received in advancing and moving this project forward. This project is not in opposition to municipal land use decisions. This project is not. For those that might be very interested in the current ongoing bus rapid transit study from Gorham to Portland, that's a fantastic idea. How can this project make that project better and more viable? This is not intended to be a short-term fix. The worst thing we can do is create something that we have to fix 5 years, 10 years down the road. And this problem is not exacerbating sprawl. We know sprawl is a concern. We know sprawl is occurring. But this increase in mobility is not the charge of what's creating sprawl. This project is. This project has been requested by the communities. It's been requested by the legislature. The authority is acting on those requests. This is an opportunity. You're going to hear this theme a lot, gang. So opportunity to advance land use, transit, and the roadway. For those that came over and had a chance to speak with me over here, you're going to hear that message a lot. We are not thinking about one thing. We are thinking about three things. Opportunities for housing, economic development. The level of congestion that is stifling this area is having an impact on those opportunities. This is intended to be a long-term solution. The authority is advancing it. It would be a toll facility. So if folks chose not to use it, they wouldn't have to. It would be paid for by the users, no state or federal tax dollars. It is consistent with the Maine climate action goals, not just the roadway, but when we look at all the parts and pieces that are there, we can be consistent with Maine's very important climate action plan. And again, another element you were going to hear tonight is the Turnpike actively engaged with landowners, wanting to make this something that works for everybody. We know it's a road. We know it's a big project. We know there's a lot of folks who might have some concerns tonight. We want to share with those. We want to share our desire to continue to work with landowners. So before I jump in and give you some details, Carol Morris is going to give you some background on how the public meeting is going to work. Carol?
Thanks, Paul. I'm Carol Morris. I have a public engagement firm, and my role here tonight is to facilitate the meeting, moderate it, and the big role is to try to make sure that everybody who wants to speak gets a chance to speak. All right. Now, for those of you who may not want to speak tonight, but still want to get their message, and you didn't still want to get your message across, and you did not do a handwritten comment, you can actually, with your smartphone, use the QR code on the screen, or the QR code is also over on the sides. Or if you're not a QR code kind of person and you want to go to Main Turnpike at Gorham Connector, you can also comment there if you think of something you forgot tonight or you just don't feel like talking in public. So the agenda tonight is really, I'm going to give it back to Paul for about 15 minutes. He's going to go through some specific background on the route that you may have seen on the, if you got a chance to go around the room, how they got to it. We're going to talk about Smiling Hill Farm because I know that's the reason why many of you are here tonight. And then we're going to open it up to everybody. And that process is going to work in the sense that there will be 4 people with roving microphones because this meeting is being live streamed and it's also being recorded. So in order for the people who are either listening remotely or wanting to see it later to hear you, you have to speak into a mic. So rather than having people come and line up, we will be bringing microphones to you. We'll have 4 people roving around the room and I'll be calling on you, you know, person here, person here, person here, so folks can get into position so we won't have a lot of waiting time because really there's a lot of you here and I'm sure you would like to talk. Finally, I'm going to ask, and I know this will be hard for you to be fairly brief and concise. Gorham, the municipality of Gorham has a 3-minute rule for their council meetings. I know we may not be able to hold you to that, but I'm asking you to be appreciative of your fellow participants here and try to move things along. And just to be clear, if you ask a question and you find that Paul or whomever is going to be answering you isn't answering your question or you don't understand it, you can ask another question for clarification so we can have a little bit more of a dialogue as opposed to just a one-way stream of conversation. And then I'm going to turn it back to Paul for 15 minutes. Okay.
So to start, gang, I probably don't need to orient you to the study area. This is something many of you know well. I am presenting it on the screen simply because a lot of the graphics and information we're going to share with you this evening are oriented this way. So obviously our study area encompasses the 4 communities: Gorham, Westbrook, Scarborough, South Portland. Our study area essentially ends at the westerly, at the southerly end of the existing Gorham bypass, and then extends east all the way over to exit 45. So again, a lot of what we present this evening will be oriented in this fashion. I want to start tonight because this story really started back in 2012. If you haven't had a chance to go to the Turnpike Authority's website, if you haven't had a chance to read this, I actually found some folks who'd read this, was very pleased this evening. Back in 2012, at the direction of the legislature, Maine Turnpike Authority, Maine DOT did an evaluation of the challenges in addressing safety and mobility issues west of Portland. That was the charge. That was the legislative direction. The 5-year effort, which culminated in 2012, had 3 recommendations. The first recommendation was around land use. Communities should continue to work towards taking specific actions towards, we use the term urban and rural here, but it's really village type development, creating density, creating opportunity, creating place where you can live and work, bike and walk, do those types of things, not everywhere, but in a place where communities can look to create nodes that would be transit supportive. That was the first recommendation. The second recommendation was that the study wholeheartedly encouraged transit providers to continue to expand and enhance their transit network. Bus rapid transit, rail, all very viable, all very possible. We identified a range of things that could be done, a good portion of which has been completed today and continues to keep going. The last, and we only got here after we proved in the 2012 study that just land use or just transit didn't solve the safety and mobility problems. Our last recommendation came because we determined the need. There was need for additional capacity. Didn't say how, but the 2012 study recommended that new and additional roadway capacity be completed. Why are we here? Safety and mobility. This is a focus around the overlap where 22 and 114 comes together. You'll see orange dots on the screen. Those orange dots today are what we call high crash locations. The number of orange dots today, almost twice the number that we had when we looked at this in 2012. Today in the study area, 26 high crash locations, 59 in the expanded region. Today, within the greater communities of Gorham, Westbrook, Scarborough, and South Portland, there are 45 miles of roadway that are at or near capacity. That's the charge and the challenge that we have been asked to address. This is where we've started how we're going to address and fix these challenges. So the third recommendation of the 2012 study was add new capacity. Well, how can we do that? There are 2 ways in which we can add new capacity. Our capacity adding alternatives were focused around the area where we saw congestion being the most predominant. This is in the area in and around the overlap. The first series of new capacity alternatives that we evaluated is what we call widen the road. For those of you that might have traveled along Route 302 in Wyndham, that is what we'd see as a widened road alternative. You've got multiple lanes in each direction. You've got in many places a center turn lane so you can get in and out. So we actually looked at, in order to add additional capacity, what if we widen the road? We looked at 3 different places, starting at the southerly end of the Gorham bypass, going along the overlap, then either extending down County Road, going down Running Hill Road, or going down all the way 114 to Payne Road. We evaluated those widened road alternatives. Next, we evaluated new roadway alternatives. Not just one alignment, multiple alignments, many different ways in which we could go from the southern end of the Gorham bypass to roughly around exit 45, different ways, different curvatures. I'm going to share with you in a minute why these lines look the way they do. And there is a specific reason around that. So this in collective was the number of alternatives that we've evaluated. This is part of what we call our alternatives analysis. That is part of the documentation that we will share with all of you and with the agencies that will be looking at this in terms of considering a permit. I talked about why the lines look the way they do. Well, there's a lot of stuff out here. And by stuff, I mean things like natural resources. The green areas on the map are wetlands. The lighter blue areas on the map, maybe a little bit harder to read, rivers, streams, water bodies. There are a large number of these within our study area. We also looked at what else was around here. The red circles are areas of commercial and industrial development that are in and around here. The orange areas are areas of residential development. So we would love if there was one easy answer. There isn't. This process is about balancing all of the things that are in front of us. Some of us are concerned about our homes. Some of us are concerned about our businesses. Those that are charged with protecting natural resources, they're concerned about wetlands and streams. It's all important, gang. And we do our best to try to develop something that tries to miss as much of it as we can. So the lines, the curves, where they go, they have meaning, they have purpose. One of the things that we've heard a number of times is, wow, just a brand new road. It's so wide. Why don't we just, a new roadway, a widened roadway aren't that much different in cross section. This image, as you look at the top, if a new roadway was constructed and a new roadway being 2 lanes in each direction with a center median, very consistent with how the turnpike operates today, would be roughly 86 feet wide. A widened roadway, very similar to what you see along the section of 302 in Wyndham, with 2 lanes in each direction and a center turn lane, that would be 76 feet. If you added sidewalks, you're already at or over that width. So one of the things we wanted to mention is we were very mindful of, depending upon which alternative you constructed, what would be the size, what would be the width of those alternatives. What did we find? Anytime we evaluate alternatives, we always have to compare it against no build. What if we simply let the world continue down its current path? Well, for us, no build wasn't the answer. Safety and mobility continue to decline. I think for those that travel the region, not doing anything probably isn't the answer you're looking for. We hear a lot from folks on Day Road, McClellan Road, Running Hill Road. The amount of traffic on my road, Paul, oh my gosh, it's more and more every day, and it is. We have the information to support that. It's not consistent with community objectives. Gorham and Scarborough have said, we don't want to just do nothing. That doesn't give us the opportunity to advance our community the way we want. Again, for those that got to listen to me over at my station, greenhouse gas emissions are worse when vehicles are sitting in traffic doing 0 to 5 miles an hour. And if we continue that trend, we're going to continue to be challenged around greenhouse gases. So for us, no build was not the answer. We looked at widened roads. What we found was, if you were looking to widen those roads, as we indicated, 76 feet wide, wider if sidewalks, the disruption would be lengthy. 5 or more years. Think of traveling on the overlap, construction. For those of us that got hung up today waiting for the CMP workers to do their great job trying to fix all the down power lines, that's what you'd be living for 5 years trying to construct a road along these roadways. The widened roadway is a short-term answer. It could be constructed roughly by 2030, but it would only last 20 years. And then we're right back to where we are today. So we didn't think that was a great answer. It's not consistent with what the communities are looking for. The number of parcels, the number of buildings that would be affected by widened were significant. 180 parcels, more than 20 buildings eliminated. Really hard to comply with Maine Climate Action Plan. This is an alternative. If this was advanced, it would need to be done by Maine DOT. It would need to be funded by state and federal tax dollars. So what did we find? Through the analysis, our alternatives analysis, we find that a new road is financially and logically feasible. It maximizes safety and mobility. All those orange dots you saw, those 45 miles of congestion, this alternative addresses it to the greatest degree. It is consistent with what the communities are doing. Gorham and Scarborough would love to get some of the traffic off the overlap, do some village type development. About 70% fewer parcels affected, 50% fewer buildings. Any building is a challenge. We get that. We're not taking this lightly. Every home or business impacted means something. It does. But we look at it in aggregate, and that's we make that part of our evaluation. We know the environmental impacts are high, but there are strong mitigation opportunities. We know Maine DOT is here this evening. We appreciate them being a partner. There are opportunities to advance bus, transit, bicycle, pedestrian, trails as part and in parallel to this effort. And again, toll road. If those choose that want to use it, they can. If they don't have to. So that's where we ended up. This is where we are today. And our conversation starts today. This is the proposed route that we are bringing to you for your input. And I suspect a lot of you have input about that tonight. So starting at the southerly end of the Gorham bypass, running along the northern edge of what used to be the Gorham Country Club, crossing across Brackett and Saco Street, down along the westerly edge of Smiling Hill Farm, a proposed interchange at County Road, running immediately south of the Eco Main landfill, another interchange at Running Hill Road, and then connecting in and around exit 45. That's the proposed route that we've been very thorough and rigorous about evaluating, and we are very excited to share with you this information this evening. I know there are a number of you here to talk about Smiling Hill Farm, and you should be. Please, gang, understand this. We are not here to just simply say, let's just take a slice of the Smiling Hill Farm and not worry about this. That is not the conversation that the authority is looking to have or has had moving forward in dealing with Smiling Hill Farm. This is an important part of the landscape. This is an important part. My kids went to Smiling Hill Farm. I know the importance that this brings. My addition got built with lumber from Hillside Lumber. This is an important part of community. We do not take this lightly. But what I do want to share is some information about the engagement and the information around Smiling Hill Farm. So what you saw on the map, yes, the roadway does go through Smiling Hill Farm. It is going through the connector and an interchange at the western edge of the field. Of the 78 acres of field, it is impacting currently in its current proposed route about 5 of those acres. 47 of the 500 or more acres are being impacted in total. We can tell you right now, based on the current proposed route, there is no impact to any buildings, the barnyard, including the dairy store, the farm animal buildings, Hillside Lumber. As you saw from the previous image, they're about 1/3 of a mile to 1/4 of a mile away. Turnpike Authority is very mindful of working to offset the impacts to the property. There is no intent here to just simply say, take what we need, move on. The authority has had multiple meetings with the Knight family. They hope and anticipate that there will be more to come. They are interested in being at the table with this dialogue. Looking at a possible land swap, we recognize that every acre is important to the farm, but is there a conversation around what if, adjacent and contiguous land could be made, field land, forested land, farmland? What if that could be made available? Is that something that the Smokes at Smiling Hill Farm would be interested in? They are absolutely interested in assisting the farm with replacing hayfield. There's some concern about cutting off access with the roadway. What if there was a tunnel constructed that you could get to? There are a lot of examples in the state of Maine where this has been done. So can they do that? Again, working with DOT, perhaps working with Smiling Hill Farm. Is there an opportunity to explore partnerships to not only maintain, but enhance and expand that trail network? And again, Turnpike Authority has had initial conversations with the Knight family. What are those additional conversations? They are simply looking to have that conversation and understand, is this possible? Let's sit down and work our way through it. We did look at alternates that did not go through Smiling Hill Farm. I'm going to share that in a second. Some of the challenges are great. So again, please understand, gang, I hope it feels this way. The intent to go through Smiling Hill Farm is not taken lightly. And it is absolutely, this is in black and white. It doesn't get more tangible than this. The authority is looking to work with the folks at Smiling Hill Farm to hopefully find an answer that works for everybody. One of the questions we've gotten asked a lot in recent days is, Paul, just draw a straight line. The world will be great. Miss Smiling Hill Farm. That will be fantastic. Okay. On the screen is the proposed route. Highlighted in, should be orange, is the outline of the Smiling Hill Farm property. So what if our charge was just simply to say, Miss Smiling Hill Farm at all costs? What does that look like? That's kind of, sort of what it would look like. For us, this is not a viable alternative, and I will tell you why. It's not necessarily a straight line. We always like to come into intersections up by the Gorham bypass at a 90-degree, but if we were to extend just a straight line, numerous homes along McClellan Road would be impacted. Now we're well outside of the area of the Gorham Country Club. The road would need to cross over Wasomke Springs and the wellhead protection areas that are around it. That's a big challenge for us. All of the commercial development, the businesses that are located in and around the intersection of County Road, Saco Street, Beach Ridge, tremendously impacted. That would be a challenge. Once we get through that, homes, the north side of County Road, homes, the south side of County Road, again, impacted as this. So could we draw a straight line? We could. This is the challenge we would face in addressing that, and I'm guessing the audience might be a little bit different if this was the proposed route we would bring forward. So my message here is this. For those that are thinking this is a done deal, it's not. For those that are thinking we're not listening or do not want to listen to the Smiling Hill Farm, I would hope that you would see that that is incorrect. We are very willing to work around. Maybe the answer at the end of the day is it doesn't work. But I know the authority well enough to know that they want to have this conversation. They're looking forward to having this conversation and seeing what's possible. I'd like to think that that could happen. Before I close and let you folks come and do what you want to do, which is provide us your comment and input, and we're very much looking forward to that, wanted to give you a general sense of where we are. So we've been engaged in community input with the municipalities. We've met with some of the advocacy groups dealing with, that are part of this process. Public process starts tonight. We are anticipating multiple meetings with the public to hear your concerns and to respond to your concerns. That will happen over the next several months. We are in the process, as we have said, of documenting all that thorough and rigorous analysis that we have developed. That will be ongoing. We are hoping to submit a permit probably sometime mid to later part of this year. We started preliminary design enough to understand where we're at, but once we get some input from the public, final design would begin later this year. At earliest, as I've told many folks this evening, the earliest timetable for this project to potentially get under construction, and I say potentially because we have to engage and listen and respond to the public. We have to work with the Army Corps of Engineers, who is the agency responsible for this project. This project doesn't go anywhere without a permit. So best case scenario, if all of these things occur, is construction would begin sometime late 25, early 26. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Carol. We are very much looking forward to your questions. Please speak loudly, name, town, question, comment, whatever you'd like to bring forward. We're looking forward to hearing from you this evening.
Hold on. Do I see two of my microphone people? Three? Okay. So before we start off, ma'am, hold on. I'm wondering, I know Mr. Warren Knight is here. I'm wondering if he would like to speak first. If he would, I know I saw him. Okay. Do you want to speak first? Christy, go give him the mic.
Hello, can everyone hear me? See that? I'll take that. That's a picture of the western end of Smiling Hill Farm. And if you could take that magic marker and could you put a line on that where the proposed road is going to be? Please, with the marker. Thank you. That's unacceptable to our family. I know this community, this state can do better. We can do better than that. I really don't have anything else to say. I just want to give the opportunity for everyone here to say what they would like to say.
Okay. Who wants to be first? Yes.
My name's Bernadette Woodcock. I've lived in Gorham for almost 30 years. And I have a question. I too am concerned for Smiling Hill Farm, and that is a main priority, wanting to hear. There was one slide, not to turn attention, because there'll be lots of people to talk about that you had only one. I see it broken down in pieces. I missed this part over here. I live in South Gorham. There was one slide that had the whole loop. And we're talking about the one that goes through Smiling Hill Farm in there. But you also mentioned the return around to exit 44. Is there a slide that shows the whole thing? Is that just that impact?
So I want to make sure I understand your question. Ma'am, is your question where the roadway connects over at exit 44, 45?
Well, this is great. I see it broken down in many pieces. So obviously there's an impact from coming from 45 and bringing people out. But then this return, this is a whole section of the roadway as well that returns you back to 44. Am I correct? Am I looking at that?
Go to the proposed route, please, Ray.
What you're seeing, that was the study area. It's a large circle.
That was the study area.
Yes, not
so it's
that-
one roadway, not a return coming back
Right.
to 44.
No.
Ray is going to bring up the slide that actually shows the road itself, which is just a single line cutting
Okay,
across.
well,
there.
that's what I saw. I was confused by what was said. So, thank you.
Right. I think we should have. Who wants to be next? Sir, and let me get somebody else over here as well. Sir with the white hair. Second number. Oh, wait. Wait a minute. He does not have white hair. All right. First is gentleman in the back.
All right. Hi, this is on. Okay, my name is Alan Armstrong. I live in Portland, and I would like you to elaborate on the relationship between the connector and the bus rapid transit proposals that PAX has been working on. In detail, I just wonder how they compete and how they might possibly, as you suggested, help each other.
Happy to answer that question, sir. So many of you may be aware that PAX GPCOG is advancing a study of bus rapid transit from Gorham to Portland. I think that's a fantastic idea. One of the desired outcomes of that is to try to have dedicated bus lanes so that the bus BRT, which the R is for rapid, could be able to move efficiently and quickly to help promote ridership. One of the challenges today is, given the level of traffic, given the level of congestion on roadways like Route 25, the ability to simply take a travel lane away and replace it with a bus are challenging. I know the city of Westbrook, I won't speak for Jerry, but I know the city of Westbrook and GPCOG and PAX have talked about, if the Gorham Connector came, could that open up an opportunity for potentially a dedicated lane along that road, again, to help promote bus rapid transit from Gorham to Portland. So from our perspective, we think bus rapid transit and the connector can work together. We'd like to see that. To expand on your question, which I will, I know Maine DOT is here. They're actually looking at doing a study of, if the Gorham Connector came, what bus or rapid transit or other transit opportunities could come along the connector. So we think they can be complementary. We don't think they should be seen as one or the other. We think they can both be done together.
Does that answer your question? Great.
Hi, my name is Henry Haber, and I'm a resident of Brunswick. First of all, I just wanted to thank all the people. I spoke to a bunch of people as I walked around the room, and I really appreciated the chance to do that. I'm a native of Kentucky, but have moved to Maine for a job. And really, because I love where I grew up, but I wanted to live someplace where I could pursue a lot of the outdoor interests I had and do that kind of easily. And Maine has been a wonderful place for me and to live and to raise a family. But I want to tell a quick story. So where I grew up, I go back to Kentucky frequently. My mom is there. She's 98. I've kept in touch with a wonderful group of childhood friends. And every time I return, I go often fly, and I go to the airport. And then I travel along the Waterston Expressway, which is started out as a 4-lane road around Louisville. And then now is really, when you count breakdown lanes, is a 10-lane road. And everyone I talk to in Louisville will tell me, I often ask, and they'll say two things. One, the Waterston Expressway is an essential part of the city's transportation infrastructure. And in the same breath, and they'll say, and I wish we'd never built it. And so I really, that was just kind of a real life example. But I wanted to kind of follow up by saying, I mean, I'm a historian and a kind of an amateur historian, but I could point out hundreds of similar examples around the country and around the world where that would be the case. I also just want to raise every time I read about this proposal, and I should add, I'm a board member with the Bicycle Coalition of Maine, and we support helping to make communities make bicycling and walking safe and convenient. So I'm here just because I'm interested, but I happen to be serving that role. And I always hear that it's only going to be paid for by the people who use it. And yeah, technically I think that's true, but in the bigger sense, I think that everybody will be paying a price for this project, even if they're not using the road. That price, there are lots of things. This road will, it'll be noise, there's noise, there's the cutting up of wildlife habitat, there's wildlife mortality. And this road, again, eventually it too will become congested, and they'll be looking for solutions to what do we do next. So I guess I'll summarize, but my question would be, well, I guess a couple of things. One, I think Maine actually is at a big fork in the road, to use that metaphor. We can continue doing what we've done in the past and, look at building and widening roads as the solution to our congestion and transportation problems. Or we can take I think, a more courageous and visionary approach and look at some other alternatives and there are lots of examples in the United States and around the world that we could turn to. So I think my question would be, what if we could spend the $240 million but not build a road? What would that look like? And you said you've looked at that, but I'm not sure you've looked at it really fully and with an eye toward this is what we're going to do. And then finally, I would say, I come into Maine every time I return to Maine. I come in, I see the way life should be, that sign on the turnpike, and I honestly believe that projects like this are completely antithetical to the way life should be. That you can't have both. You can widen the highway, but if you widen the highway, you should have a budget item for removing the way life should be signs, because they're incompatible. So again, thank you so much for the chance to speak and to speak with you beforehand. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yep. Thank you for your comment. Okay, yes, in the red. And then let me line up two more people. Hold on. Somebody in the middle section, lady back in the white. And then over here, yes, in the plaid shirt. Go ahead.
Well, I know that the Gorham Connector could be very good and stop a lot of congestion. And Smiling Farm is a Hill Farm is a concern to me. But could you show me the proposed route with environmental constraints, please?
We sure can.
Absolutely.
So you might not be able to see it on this map, but there's a brook running right through there that gets crossed twice.
Red Brook, yep.
Yeah, Red Brook. And it has brook trout, which are a native Maine species. And I'm worried that the runoff will affect them and possibly eliminate their population in that stream, which could be very hard because they are threatened. So I just wanted to say that. That's all. Thank you.
Great question. Absolutely. Part of this process is understanding if the project needs to cross Red Brook, can it be done in a way that addresses your concerns? Can we do this? Can this be done in such a way where the road can go over the brook and the brook trout aren't impacted and the runoff is contained? That's the challenge that we have to be able to answer, because the question you've just asked are the same questions we're getting from the agencies who are charged to protect this. So great question. Thank you very much.
Nancy Rollo in Gorham. My concern is runoff from the road and the speed limit and accidents that will occur on the road and the cleanup of that, and how does it impact the surrounding land, the road runoff, especially from rain. I know, you put up a parking lot wasn't a very popular song when I was young, and we don't want that to happen.
Thank you. I'm gonna call on Ray Hamp, who's sitting to my left, to answer the question around drainage, because that is a fair question. I was having a conversation, this gentleman straight back, I was having a conversation with him today. Speed and safety are big concerns here. And one of the things that we are seeing as an opportunity with a new and efficient facility is having a safer facility. Again, I'll point back to the 26 red dots in this immediate study area. That's a challenge. It's not going away. If we can put vehicles on roads that are designed to be safe and efficient, your safest roads in the state from a number of crashes per 100 million vehicle miles are the interstates. So again, if we can put traffic on those, we believe it will be safer. To address drainage, I know, and I'm trying to write for stormwater.
So to Paul's point, it is our obligation as we advance design of this proposed route that we have to manage stormwater. And we know that that's an obligation. And as we do, we'll evaluate where and how best to manage that stormwater so that it doesn't have an adverse effect to the surrounding habitats, both for Red Brook or Long Creek or the adjacent wetlands that are nearby. So we understand the obligation and the charge that we have as we progress the design. And we take that incredibly seriously because it is important to the area.
Can you give a couple of examples on how you could do that?
Sure, Carol. So a part of that is we'll be evaluating appropriate stormwater management devices to be able to treat that stormwater runoff as it comes away from the road. It's managing peak and post stormwater flows, meaning the flooding concerns, so that we're not increasing the volume of water going to adjacent property. All of those things are things that we're evaluating as the project moves forward.
Is that enough, ma'am? Okay. All right, we had, yes, the gentleman in the plaid.
Good evening. Thanks for taking my comment and holding this forum tonight, allowing people to express themselves. My name is Paul Drynan. I'm a Westbrook resident, and I'm the founder of Vision Zero Maine, a new organization that advocates for safe streets for all, with a focus on active transportation policy. The proposed highway expansion in Gorham is a classic case of induced demand and will not solve a traffic congestion problem. Induced demand is a term that comes out of economics, and it means that when you create more of a product, more people will consume the product. In this case, the product is a road. If the problem is cars, enabling more car traffic will not solve the problem. Now, while traffic congestion may prove to be inconvenient for the affected communities, we believe that highway expansions create more lasting harm and are a terrible financial investment. According to the Maine Sensible Transportation Policy Act, Title 23, Section 73, subsection 3, it's a quote, "It is the policy of the state that transportation planning decisions, capital investment decisions, and project decisions must, A, minimize the harmful effects of transportation on public health and air and water quality, land use, and other natural resources. B, require that the full range of reasonable transportation alternatives be evaluated for all significant highway construction or construction projects and give preference to transportation system management options, demand management strategies, improvements to the existing system, and other transportation modes before increasing highway capacity through road building activities," end quote. Highway expansions are historically harmful to the surrounding communities, the environment, and do not solve the problem of traffic congestion. If anything, these projects have been shown to exacerbate the problem and yield undesirable outcomes such as sprawl, pollution, poor health, financial burdens, and divided communities. So in light of this, Vision Zero Maine opposes this project, and we invite the MTA and its stakeholders to pursue real solutions. I think I have about a minute left, so this is where I go off script. I want to applaud the MTA for putting out a request for proposal for active transportation and rapid transit. And my request is that we just do that. That will solve the problem. Building a road won't solve the problem. Thank you.
So a fair number of questions. I will provide a overview and response. I'm happy to do a more detailed overview after. So, STPA, very important legislation, absolutely something that before you even consider new capacity, you should rigorously evaluate. The 2012 study is that. The 2012 study looked at land use, an incredible level of transit, and the conclusion to those two pieces were the problem in which that we had been charged to address wasn't solved. Happy to go through and discuss the merits of the 2012 study. Completely agree. We need to be rigorous and we need to look at this. But again, this is not a one or the other. This is an opportunity to do multiple things. Maine DOT, absolutely. Active transportation opportunities, all in. I think that's fantastic. I'm really excited to see, again, the big if the Gorham Connector came, what opportunities might that bring? Could BRT from Gorham to Portland be more viable with this or not? We may have to agree to disagree on this, and that's okay. But our charge, we know we have to satisfy STPA. We believe we have. So again, happy to go a deep dive there. Very much appreciate the comment. Great comment.
Lady with the white hair and the purple. Next, hold on, let me get a few more people lined up. Lady over here in the gray. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Yes, I will, you.
Hi, my name is Pam. I live in Gorham, and I just want to piggyback on the last two speakers that we have seen the effects of climate change happening much faster than we anticipated, and we have to wean ourselves off of cars. We have to find other ways of getting around. Building another highway is not the answer. I live in West Gorham, and I've lived here for 37 years. And yes, the traffic's bad, but that's my choice. I've chosen to live there. And I would gladly take a bus. I would gladly take a train, but I don't want to see more roads built. You know, I grew up in New Jersey, like a person from Kentucky, and I've seen what a mess that state's been made of. And that's why I live here. And I hate to see us go down that road, but we have to wean ourselves off fossil fuels. Sooner, the better. We don't have much time left.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Karen Norton. I live in Westbrook. And as long as the discussion of the Gorham Connector has been in question, its potential impact on Smiling Hill Farm has been an issue. The state has stated that only 45 to 50 acres of this farm will be needed to complete this project, but it is clear from the map that the proposed 4-lane highway runs directly through the Knight property. How can a farm operate without access to all of its property? What would the response be of any other business, such as a mill or a factory, if a highway ran directly through their facility? I know there's a tunnel in Route 95, and you alluded to a possibility of a tunnel that has a farm that goes either side of that highway. But a farm has its own needs, which should be recognized. Notwithstanding, this project takes away from the agricultural nature of this property. Smiling Hill sells not only milk, ice cream, but the chance to visit a farm that is surrounded by fields and trees, not a 4-line highway with its incumbent noise and dirt. And I think the picture posted gives you a clear picture of what it would look like looking out from Smiling Hill Farm. I believe that the Knight family has always been a good citizen in this community. As such, they are also a business interest who has just as much right to determine their needs as any other business. To me, this means relieving traffic congestion is not more important than in the needs of a farm which has been in the Knight family for 13 generations. While I question the need for this highway on many levels, the location running through the Knight property, and I would point out the timeline says the initial final design will be 2024, which is this year. So discussions with the Knight family, I think should have happened, or maybe still are happening, but I think they should have been in place a long time ago. But anyway, that's not my problem. But this does not represent the best option to address the larger issues of traffic congestion, the needs of the environment, and the needs of the Knight family themselves. Thank you.
Okay,
No,
I don't think I'll get applause, but from somebody who's had their property taken when I was a child, I survived. Okay. It's for the people who come here from out of state, they drove the turnpike or the highway. Okay. How many people here today drove on the highway? The idea of reducing where people live takes away their ability to work. I drive an hour every day. Okay. That's because I'm marketable. I had to go to where they would pay me a good wage so I could live in Gorham and pay the taxes in Gorham. Okay. I have no problem with the project. I have no problem with the environmental impact unless it is done irresponsibly, which I think they're trying to be very responsible for. But let's be real here, people. Okay. We don't live in New York City. We don't live in LA where you can take a bus or a subway. We're disjointed communities that are joined together by roads. And my wife has to travel to South Portland to the doctor's office 3 times a week. Okay. Trying to get over to the mall area in the morning or late afternoon, trying to drive that corridor is atrocious and it's not safe. This is for safety. Is it the best? Is it what we want? No. Is it going to impact people? Yes, it will. But will it make travel time better? Will it make the road safer? Will it decongest things? I mean, everybody wants convenience, but nobody wants anything in the backyard. Okay. Let's get real. I'm not going to get applause for this. We're not going to be driving EVs where they dig up cobalt and lithium and everything else to do it instead of coal. We're going to be driving on roads, and we need the roads to be safe. We need to be where you can get to them quickly, where it doesn't take you an hour for a 20-minute drive. And that's going to save gas.
thank you. Okay. All right, let's get some folks over on this side. Gentleman with the glasses and the sunglasses. Yes, in the blue hat, you're number 2. In the gray hat, you're number 1. Who else over here? Right there, yes, you.
Good evening. Thanks for hosting this. My name is Rick Foley from Gorham. My younger sister here and I were displaced from our childhood house in Portland by 295. So we know what it's like to get bulldozed. I thought I saw a couple of disingenuous bullet points up there. One of them related to the new road as an opportunity for pedestrians and bicyclists. You may not be aware of it, but the turnpike forbids pedestrians and bicyclists on their road. So you might need to redact that statement. Also, there was a time about 10, 15 years ago that the turnpike was going to reduce or remove the tolls through Portland to allow the surface streets in those areas to be freed up by allowing people free access onto the turnpike between Scarborough and North Portland, Falmouth. I don't know if many people know it, but you can ride the turnpike for free in Lewiston and Auburn between the two of them. There's a deal made there somewhere. We need to also look at the engineering study here. One of your statements was about making it, paraphrasing, green and better for the economy, the ecological. The road is showing it's going to terminate on the east end of Dead Man's Roundabout. Whoever engineered that needs to go back to school. That turnpike needs to overfly that. If this thing happens, that needs to overfly it, because the majority of the vehicles are going to be going through there are carrying 12,000 gallons of diesel fuel, gasoline, or whatever it's going to Western Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. To have a truck coming at 55 miles an hour, whatever the posted speed is going to be, and stop at a stoplight or come into Dead Man's Roundabout is not good engineering. You need to fly over that with at least the westbound lane and the eastbound lane, and then the number two lanes on either side would drop down onto 114. To do anything else is just crazy, because now you get trucks, and learn from the mistakes of the previous engineers for the Turnpike Authority, who just brilliantly put a toll plaza at the foot of the hill in York. So all the trucks coming down had to brake, and all the trucks going up had to climb a hill. The ones climbing, not very fuel economy. And that's what you're going to have here. There's a hill on the other side of that roundabout that needs to allow the vehicles to maintain their speed if this thing happens. Personally, I hope it doesn't.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, sir. Yes, to clarify, absolutely. Bicycles, pedestrians are not allowed on interstate facilities, including the Maine Turnpike. Maine DOT is here. The statement is organized around the opportunity is, again, if the connector came, could you turn the overlap area into a walkable and bikeable area? Because now 40% of the traffic that is there is no longer there. So Dale Dowdy and his team here for Maine DOT, they're the ones who can speak very eloquently to this rather than I. And again, your point is very valid. If the Gorham Connector came, the roundabout could not, should not, would not be there. Whether it was a 4-lane signalized intersection, whether it was a flyover, all of your points are on point. So yes, that would need to be appropriately addressed.
My name is Luke Fogg, and I'm a senior at Casco Bay High School in Portland, and I'm a member of Trout Unlimited Sebago chapter. Wow, what a project. So there was a young man over there who was wearing red. I believe he left, but he was talking about native brook trout. And, I love to fish, and fishing is a passion, and fishing brought me to conservation. And this, I believe, will not benefit the trout or conservation at all. Brook trout, native brook trout specifically, need 68 degrees Fahrenheit to survive in a water. So what will this construction bring? It will clear trees, it will add sediment to the water, therefore stirring it up and raising the temperature, therefore the trout dying. I'll say again, this is a native reproducing brook trout population, which is extremely rare, and it is a dying and protected breed. And I believe there was talk of rerouting Red Brook, which doesn't make any sense. It's a stream that's been there for hundreds, maybe thousands of years. You channel it, that's not going to work. And I believe it's irresponsible. I want to enjoy fishing for brook trout in Maine, and specifically this area. I want my kids to enjoy fishing for brook trout. I want my grandkids to enjoy fishing for brook trout. And projects like these are going to ensure that that doesn't happen. So, you can't move wetlands. You can't channel rivers. It doesn't work. So, I guess my question would be, how are you going to make this work without killing off these brook trout? So that's what I have to say.
Thank you for the question. We're going to have Judy Gates, our environmental team lead, to provide an answer. Thank you.
Hello. Hello. One of the things that we've made sure to do from the very beginning is work with both the regulatory and resource agencies that are going to be looking at this project to make sure that they know as much as we know and vice versa about the resource. Maine IF&W fisheries biologists went out and surveyed Red Brook as well as the Stroudwater River, Stroud Brook, some of the other unnamed streams in the project area for brook trout. And they did find brook trout, of course, in Red Brook. There's a bigger population down low for some reason. There's a small population thriving upstream. The other thing that we were able to identify is that most of the cold water inputs to Red Brook that are keeping those brook trout alive are doing that because of water coming out of the old quarries. That's nice, deep, clean, cold water. So we're maintaining that flow. The original thought that everyone had was that it was upstream, those wetlands across County Road that were the primary source. And while those do provide, some attenuation of flows, that main source is the cold water. So what we're working with IFNW as well as the federal fisheries agencies on is designing crossings, making sure that our stormwater is responsible and doesn't affect the brook. And we'll also have some opportunities in a couple of areas to kind of restore some stable sections of brook that right now are suffering from runoff from unregulated development. So I think all of that together, we're listening, we're responding, and those are ongoing conversations.
Wait. Yeah, sir. I have someone before you, sir. So if you could just sit down. Yes, you have a follow-up question? Could you speak into the microphone, please? Thank you.
Are you going to channel the brook? Is that the plan, or is there no
No.
plan?
So when you first start a project, you almost start with the straight line version, right? Like what would be the least expensive, most straightforward to build way to go? And then you start working around environmental constraints, right? So if you were to draw that straight line, it would require relocating the brook. That was quickly put aside as something that really wasn't something that the Turnpike was interested in doing. And that kind of disturbance to that resource wasn't necessary. So we shifted the alignment as far west as we could without getting into more impacts to other resources and contaminants and that sort of thing. So we did shift it quite a bit, as well as trying to maximize the tree buffer that we maintain between the brook, trying to get more than is regulatorily required. So, I think we listened in that respect, and we also kind of started from, as far as the brook's concerned, a worst case scenario, and ended up, I think, in a much better place where none of the brook will have to be realigned to do the project.
Map again, the one with the route? It just shows them, yeah, thank you. Oh, okay, well, I wanted to print something.
Oh.
Oh, real quick, I've just wondered if is a less expensive alternative, if anybody's ever considered, there are 4 traffic lights, you got one there, you got one there, one there, one there. Why don't you make a rotary that would a rotary here that would combine Beach Ridge 114, 22 Saco Street and the overlap. And then over here, you can't take a left turn out of Burnham Road anyway. It's impossible. So you discontinue this part of Burnham Road, extend Blue Ledge Road, connect here. Then you make a rotary here, that's County Road, the new Burnham Road, 22 and 114, for a lot less than $240 million. Just try it and see if it helps. And the other one thing I wanted to say was, I also wanted to address the thing that said the opportunity to advance bike pedestrian. It just sounded like a little bit of a vague vision of future opportunity. My car broke down one time and I had to walk on the overlap, and you would have to have a death wish. And do you guarantee that if you build a connector, you would have a dedicated, separate bike path / sidewalk all the way from downtown Gorham to the overlap, down 114 to the mall? Because you got to start somewhere. And if you build it, they will come. One thing about those proposed houses in downtown Gorham, at least kids can walk to school and you can take an e-bike or something to the grocery store. But you want to build all those houses at the golf course, and people have no way to get the lousy 2 miles into town except with a car. And if you had a place where people could safely ride an e-bike, you might find that people would do that instead of sitting in traffic. But you got to start somewhere and try that. So I'm just saying, please build that and see what happens. I think you'd be surprised how many people would use it.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask Paul to respond to the question about putting a roundabout on the existing roads. And then I'm going to ask Tom, where's Tom? Yep, to talk about sidewalks in Gorham.
We get the question. It's a fair question. Again, a couple of folks this evening just said, why don't we try something? Why don't we just try something and see how it works? So again, the challenge here is simply the magnitude of what is trying to travel from west to east in the morning and east to west in the evening. If you take a look at Maine DOT historical data, the volume of traffic on the overlap, this wonderful section of where Route 114 and 22 come together, hasn't changed since 1990. Why? Because it's going every place else. McClellan, Day, Beech Ridge, I think I mentioned these before. The amount of traffic that is going elsewhere to avoid the significant levels of congestion is a challenge. Don't get me wrong. If there was a way to address this at a smaller scale, we would have identified that as part of the alternatives analysis. Don't just believe me. Do not just believe me because I'm saying it. In the coming months, when we submit and put information forward, that documentation, that information is going to be there. This is simply a matter of too much trying to go from one place to the other, and the outcome that we need additional capacity to address the challenge. So again, look forward to you reading that information, answering your question. Dale, did you want to speak to the active transportation around what you're doing and how what the person who commented might be possible?
So my name's Dale Dowdy. I was the director of planning until last week. I'm the deputy commissioner. So a couple of things we're doing that answer a couple of questions today. Parallel and separate than the turnpike, we're going to conduct a study along the whole study area. If you walk over there when you leave tonight, you'll see trail systems as they exist today. So what DOT is doing, we'll be doing a study along the whole study area to see what we can do in two ways. One, is there a trail system that if you go over there, you'll see all these disconnected trails? Is there a way to make a Western trail system, especially with e-bikes, some of the comments today? How can we interconnect these trails? How can we make that a bit of a community corridor? Number two, and maybe Tom will speak to this as well, it's very difficult to make those corridors today bicycle pedestrian friendly. There's just too much traffic. DOT's working throughout the state. You may have seen, we just added a study. We got $25 million for North Windham. We just got $22.4 million in downtown Portland to make better pedestrian connections. But those are made because we're able to manage traffic. So again, if the connector were to be built, what could come with it? What could come with it for bicycle pedestrian connections? And then the other thing over there is what can come with it to enhance transit. Just think of the connections that could be made from the west to the peninsula in a very rapid way.
Is this on? I just realized I didn't introduce myself when I spoke first time, but I'm Tom Poirier. I'm the Director of Community Development. So regarding sidewalk and construction, really in South Gorham. So the town recently went through and rezoned both South Gorham to the South Gorham Corridor Commercial, which allows for more mixed use and walkable design criteria. So as part of that, as developers do that design in that area, they are required to do it to a more pedestrian scale. Regarding the golf course, that is also a mixed-use district. It's the South Gorham Corridor Commercial. They are allowed to mix use. And then again, sidewalk and pedestrian improvements on site are required. The town recently went through and we did a pedestrian overlay district to look through our ordinance to do a more comprehensive look at, as development happens, to do a sidewalk extension. So there is now a requirement for developers as they move forward, they pay into a fund that the town can then utilize those funds to do sidewalk extensions. to be a more thoughtful extension of sidewalks instead of having small ad hoc sidewalk connections and get away from that sidewalk to nowhere. So we are looking for sidewalk improvements as part of this. And the other thing I'll speak to quickly, we just went out for an RFP for an open space trail network plan, master plan process throughout the town. And we think trail networks will be a viable part of connecting South Gorham with the rest of Gorham. So that's all being done as this project moves forward.
Hey, Carol. They think, because I'm sure that they're getting ignored.
I was thinking we had to get people in the back this time, so.
Well, thank you. I'm Jeannie O'Brien. I live in Portland, and I will admit I have been here almost 60 years, so I'm still new. And I feel that basing things on a study that are over a decade old does not make me feel warm and fuzzy. I happen to live on Westbrook Street, and I am still very dismayed that we have over 100 houses going into where Camelot Farm used to have Arthur Randall's cows grazing, but we needed houses. We never see any taxes go down for all the houses that are constructed, nor do we ever get any infrastructure really that improves those who are already there. It's for the new housing. I was intrigued by number 5 on one of your lists that said, we do not want to become what other places have become with similar challenges. Portland's going forward now by going backwards. They're dismantling the Franklin Arterial. They are looking now at changing Park and Congress to two-way traffic as they approach Outer Congress. We're going backwards to achieve better. I'm not sure I'm convinced yet this is moving us forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, gentleman over here. Yep, Erin's on her way. Yep, with a cap and a jacket. She's coming to you.
Good. I got the tools to work with. First of all, I
Okay.
want to thank the
Wait, could you say your name and town, sir?
Hans C. Hansen.
No, you got to hold your microphone to your mouth.
I own a business park in Gorham. Is that right? Did I push a button? Okay, I'm gonna get a job. All right. First of all, I want to thank the Main Turnpike for coming in here and doing a job. And also, he graduated, Peter's a square shooter. He graduated in Gorham. Everybody should know that. Now I'm going to get started. We own a business park, my wife and I, in South Gorham. Right now, it has Northern Lights Hospital. It's used all the time. My wife and I paid to widen the highway with no public funds at our expense, nobody else's. And even Gorham asked us to take care of the light between Gorham and Scarborough, and they won't let us put a sign, synchronize the lights, but we had to pay towards that. Now, an example about accidents. South Gorham intersection, if you ask Bob Lowell, he'll tell you it's one of the highest accident rates, and they showed it on the screen, in southern Maine. Another one, we can go down the road right in front of Smiling Hill Farms. 4 people lost their lives because somebody pulled in and they got T-boned. We're sorry to hear that. Accidents happen. Nobody's blaming anybody. Now, when it comes to public transportation, I'll go as quick as I can. I worked on the Maine Central Railroad on the Mountain Division. And I worked the last of the passenger trains between, on the Main Central from Portland, Maine to Northern Maine Junction. And the last of it on the freight trains, we used to haul 220 carloads of potatoes a day. And guess who the passengers were? The hobos riding from Portland to hop off to Northern Maine Junction. They hitched a ride because they knew how to ride the trains. Now, that's the truth. Now, when you say, well, we want to go back to trail riding. Well, being on the mountain division, there was a lot of accidents going up and down the mountain between Portland and Conway, St. Johnsbury, Vermont. We had boulder slides, you name it. And we had derailments right at front of Tuckerman's Ravine, some of those big sleep areas. I'm going to go as fast as I can. The highway, I wrote a letter, which I got in my hand, to the town council to slow the speed limit down to 35 miles an hour. And I have yet to get a reaction or change the speed limit. When they go on west, they floor the cars. They just broke telephone poles off here last week. And in front of Deering Road, they snapped a few poles. And then going east by the Deering Road, a car didn't stop, and he got T-boned going the other way. So everybody wants to go back to walking trails. There are trails on the old railroad going up the mountain division, going west. Now, nobody wants to go backwards, but I'm telling you, we got to improve the highway system. I realize it's not the best answer in the world. As far as public transportation, we drill wells on, I did when I owned the company, go out to Cousins Island and get a ride over on the boat. All right. To go back and forth. You had to find a parking area to get there. Same with South Gorham. You got to have public transportation, but you got to have places to put the cars. And everybody ain't going to ride. Most of them are, I wouldn't say lazy, but they're not going to pedal a bike either. And if my age, they need a ride. So all I'm saying is I want to thank the people who are putting their efforts in. And I know they'll do a good job. And I know I'm going to get booed. I don't care. But I'll tell you what, we can't stop progress. Now also at the end of South Street, that was where the hospital is, the farmer's market. But the neighbors complained so bad about me farming. DEP inspector come in. He says, why don't you put your tail between your legs and get the heck out, Hanson, because they won't let you farm. And I used to raise 50 ton of vegetables in front of the market. And where Cumberland Farms is, that was trees planted. And they wouldn't leave us alone. And they're still mad about things because we had no other choice but sell the land and put it in a senior housing. And we got 3 more people that want to build healthcare facilities for people like me. So I want to thank you. You got a good crew here working and appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see. Sir in the back, you in the brown shirt there, and then you, ma'am. Okay, sorry, I forgot about you.
Hello, 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 hello. Is it on?
I can't.
No, no. It's working. Great. Hello. I'm Gorham Town Councilor 7 Siegel. I'm speaking just for myself, but I think it's important you know that about me. This project feels like a false dichotomy. Like you're saying we need to increase capacity to make this happen. But we can also reduce the amount of cars on the road for the same goal. Thank you. Thank you. We're talking about 240 million here for just cars, just vehicles. And then if this happens, what could be possible with pedestrian, what could be possible with bike or rapid transit? That's not a fully thought through plan. And as everyone has referenced, all these other communities that have been sold the same highway dream, and they build the highway and that's it. This isn't a full plan if you really want to affect massive change in this area when it comes to reducing traffic. Just building a highway and then saying, we'll figure out afterward what might happen is not going to end good for it's not going to end well for the town of Gorham. And I want you to understand, I live on 25. I live on a state highway. The cars back up to my house. And I live over half a mile from the town center. I get the traffic, but this isn't going to fix it. And in this iteration, I, as an individual, can't support this project and can't support the things that we will lose. We can talk about mitigating stormwater. We can talk about mitigating impacts to trout, but you know it's going to have an impact. All development has an impact. So it's not worth the cost at this point. This plan needs more to it. So thank you for taking the time to listen. And
Thank you. Okay, let's go back to the people I had over there. Yes, the gentleman in the back with the stickers and the glasses. Aaron.
Thanks. Eric Sofin from Freeport. A number of concerns I had have been addressed already. At this point, I have 4 questions. First is, looking at the timeline that you showed, how does construction start before design is done? That's deeply concerning to me. Second, you showed that map of high crash locations and argued that the connector would reduce that. But you replace that with high speed crashes, which are more likely to cause injury or fatality. That's inconsistent with goals of Vision Zero or complete streets goals. And as we talked about previously, if you divert traffic to the connector, speeds will pick up on surface streets. So we need, if this were to happen, we need surface street safety to be addressed for bicyclists and pedestrians. Dale spoke about studies in the works. Why aren't those tightly coupled to this project? Third, how have assumptions changed since 2012 when the initial study was done? The pandemic has dramatically changed people's travel patterns. Even if it was a good idea in 2012, that doesn't mean it still is. And then are we falling victim to the sunk cost fallacy? And finally, turning to my area of expertise, I'm an atmospheric chemist by training. The air pollution issue. The running the road through Smiling Hill Farm, you have air pollution and runoff and water pollution impacting the farm. You have it impacting the communities along the way. Specifically with the farm, you have NOx emissions from cars combining with ammonia emissions from farm fields. Does that become a significant issue for ammonium nitrate aerosol? Has anyone looked at that? You said, there's demonstrated evidence that highways within a quarter mile of schools lead to an increase in asthma rates among students. My understanding is there's youth education programs at the farm that are, from the sounds of it, about a quarter mile away. So I hope that these issues are explored further and hope that you can address my questions. Thank you.
Okay, so I want to be clear that before the questions get answered, I want to make clear who's going to be called on next, and that would have been you in the brown shirt. Yes. and then you, ma'am. Okay, and then I'll choose more folks, okay? We're not going anywhere tonight. You will all get to speak.
So to answer your 4 questions. So, design continues past the beginning of construction. I can get somebody to go into greater detail if you need, but typically we would have early action projects, preparing the area for construction. You don't just build, 4.5 miles of new roadway all simultaneously. It gets done in pieces. So we would have contracts that would be done earlier, but we would also have contracts that would continue later, even after construction was ongoing. So it does not need to be done all at once. I think your second question, you answered yourself. You answered yourself. Remind me of your second question, but I want to make sure we answer that. Sure. Again, it's, so when we look at roadways and the crash rates on those roadways, the roadways that are the lowest crash rates in the state are interstate roadways. When we look at the number of high crash locations and the challenges that creates, again, that's part of the challenge that we've been asked to address by the communities and by DOT. So, 26 high crash locations. When we looked at it in 2012, I'm recalling the number 11. 11 has now become 26. 45 miles of roadway at or near capacity. That has an impact on how people travel. Maybe the crash is, having more crashes, that's a challenge. And that's something that we are looking to address. So again, we're looking to put traffic on roadways that are designed to handle them, not residential roadways, not roadways and intersections that weren't designed to have a high volume of traffic. Third question, please. Get that a lot. And that's a fair question. So everybody's like, well, it's a decade old. Okay. If you read chapter 6, please go online, read chapter 6, the transit scenario and what we evaluated. Out of chapter 6 of this report has come a good portion of what the transit community has advanced forward today. And the results that we are seeing from what they're getting for ridership, expansion and enhancement to what they're doing in the transit network, very clearly outlined, very clearly understood. Again, 2012 study identified 3 things: land use, transit, and new roadway capacity. Still need to fix land use in terms of the communities, creating greater opportunities for village-style development. We need to keep expanding transit, bus, rail. That cannot stop. The road should not be seen as just one thing. We need to continue to advance bus and rail as well. But again, 26 high crash locations, 45 miles of congested roadways. That is a challenge that the authority has been asked to address. And again, through the number of evaluations that we've done, do it in 2012, do it today, even the BRT study ridership, 3,100 people a day, 20 stations, that's awesome. But if you break it down to what that benefit might be for the overlap 114, 22, it's not going to change the dynamic. It can improve ridership. It gives mode choice. It's an important part of what we need to do, but it doesn't answer the question of safety and mobility. Yep. You mind repeating the question, sir? Okay, so the question was, how can we talk about air quality when, there's going to be vehicles driving by Smiling Hill Farm? Ray, can you find, I'll give you 10 seconds, can you find the speed flow curve? Because I want to address this question because this is real. So when traffic is sitting and waiting and trying to get by Smiling Hill Farm every day because it's backed up from traffic trying to get through the overlap, it's going at a really slow speed. Those greenhouse gas emissions, NOx, VOC, they are way worse at slow speeds than they are when vehicles are traveling at a more efficient speed. So we want an efficient transportation system. We want people traveling at speeds that are reasonable, because again, when we do that, we get an opportunity to improve air quality. The worst place is right here, gang, 0 to 5. And when you look out there at 7 o'clock in the morning, at 5 o'clock at night, and traffic is as far as you can see, that's the type of emissions that are coming from those speeds. Why can I stand up here and say that this collective package, road, transit, bike, ped, has an opportunity to be in alignment with the Maine Climate Action Plan? Because it can. This project will significantly reduce the amount of time that people are in their cars. And there is a benefit from that. You couple that with transit opportunities, bicycle pedestrian opportunities, vehicle charging stations, park and ride facilities, all things that the authority has a strong history of funding and supporting. We have an opportunity to make it better today than where we currently are now. So your question was, if you double the number of cars, you're getting to the emissions. We're not doubling the number of cars. All of these cars are there today. We're not doubling anything. Yes, there are a number of vehicles using the connector, but these are the vehicles that are traveling farther today because they're trying to use residential roads. They're vehicles today that are sitting in congestion. Maybe I'm not understanding the question, and I'm happy to go down a rabbit hole and dig into that with you, please. But again, when we model this, when we look at this, when we understand where our best place is to be, it's that efficient place of speed that really is what we're trying to maximize. So I'm happy to go down that road a whole bunch with you and have a good detailed discussion if you'd like. So
Yeah,
one of
it
the
ignores it.
Okay. Ma'am. You need to speak into the microphone.
I'd like the gentleman to talk about the studies that have been done in real life. So you talk a lot about your models, you talk a lot about your predictions. I'd like you to talk about any example of any highway expansion in this country that has reduced vehicle miles traveled, that has reduced cars on nearby roads. You claim that highways are going to save our downtown. Highways don't save downtowns. Highways ruin downtowns. Highways ruin communities. Highways bring noise. Highways bring traffic. Highways bring pollution. Highways bring congestion to our neighborhoods. Highways take away our farmland. They take away our natural resources. I want you to talk about the real studies in real places that have done this and not your hypotheticals.
Sure. Thank you for your question. Fair question. I'll start right here. Gorham. Before the 1980s, early mid 1980s, getting around downtown Gorham was pretty darn awful. The traffic that backed up along 25 and down 114, gridlock, bottleneck, pick your term. When the decision was made to construct the Southerly Gorham bypass, the outcome, the real outcome, the non-hypothetical outcome was the opportunity for the community to take back its downtown, its Main Street, ability to park, ability to walk, the ability to bike. So to me, that's a real example of if you do things like adding capacity, adding new roadways, you can get a positive benefit. I'm not hiding behind the fact here that if the Gorham Connector is built, we get more vehicles going to it. That's a fact. But it is also a fact, happy to share the results, that the amount of time that people spend in their vehicles is less. I don't think that's small potatoes. I think that's real. I hear a lot about, well, other places it just doesn't work. I disagree. I think there's a lot of opportunities around if you do, again, this is not just about a road. This is a road and other things. So respectfully, I think if we look at things collectively, the collective answer is better than just doing one individual thing.
All right, still working. Okay. I believe I was just over there talking to several people. I have two people over here I have promised to have speak, and then I will come over and you folks can speak, okay? I've got the gentleman in the brown shirt who probably thought he would never get to speak. And then I have you. And then we're going over there.
Thank you. My name is Stanis Moody Roberts. I'm a resident of Scarborough on County Road across from Smiling Hill Farm. Thank you, first of all, to the town representatives that are here and to the MTA for listening to us and being open to our comments. One thing that I believe, that I hope that we could all agree on, is that taking land through eminent domain, destroying a farm, and knocking down houses has to be the very last resort. The very last resort. And what I've seen is that it isn't our last resort right now. We do have possibilities that we can try before we build such a turnpike. We can try improving our intersections. We can try building roundabouts. As someone who's facing eminent domain, I would never support any solution that would cause other houses to be knocked down, for land to be taken by eminent domain. So no, widening roads into 4-lane highways is not an option. But there is one option that you could do with that overlap within the amount of space that we have right now for that right of way. You could add one single extra lane that carries commuters in the morning one direction and in the evening back another direction. That is a valid solution that we could try. And if that doesn't work out, then you have a larger roadway with extra space for bikers, for pedestrians, and you have better intersections that are rotaries and not stoplights. Now, the very, very last resort would not be building a 4-lane turnpike with on-ramps, off-ramps, overpasses. All you would need to do is extend the Gorham bypass as a 2-lane highway that is fitting with our community, that could, when you don't have to have on-ramps and off-ramps, when you don't have to have 4 major lanes, you could not have to go through Smiling Hill. You could stay within the woodlands. You wouldn't have to go through their fields. One final thing. If this were not an MTA project, if this weren't this 4-lane massive highway, if this were just continuing that bypass, it would be half the cost, and a lot of that cost could be done with federal funds. And there wouldn't be a single toll for any commuter, so it would actually get used, and not just used by the limited amount of time that there is traffic, which is just during commuting times on 114. Also, the final thing I want to say is that traffic patterns have changed. I live on County Road. We don't get backed up like we did before the pandemic. Before the pandemic, we were backed up, and it was only for maybe a half hour. Since then, and since there's been some improvement with those intersections, I think there could be more. But since that, the only time we've been backed up to where I live was when there was construction. So I do think that there are so many more alternatives and solutions that are worth trying before we take such a destructive action as destroying a landmark, as destroying Smiling Hill, and causing the environmental impact that this is going to have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Roberta Manter. I live in Fayette. I drove about an hour and 45 minutes to get here. One of the things that strikes me about this is that we have a neighbor who is a hoarder, and her solution to the hoarding problem has been to bring in another storage shed. And when that one's full, she brings in another storage shed. I see the same kind of thing happening with roads, that if you have too much traffic, you put in a bigger road and you get more traffic. It's also going to encourage more housing development. They say that it's not going to cause more sprawl, but I don't know what proof they have of that. And he keeps talking about 45 miles. This doesn't look like 45 miles. So I'm thinking there must be a lot of other stuff elsewhere. And they're kind of making it sound as if this is going to be the solution to everything. This looks like it's only going to be a solution to a small piece of it. I also wonder how much space those interchanges are going to take up. They haven't said how many acres are consumed by one interchange. But my biggest concern is Smiling Hill Farm. This is a treasure. It's not just something that is a piece of Gorham, it's a big piece of our state. I would like to know how many school students, how many homeschoolers have been through Smiling Hill Farm, and how many of those have maybe decide that they want to be farmers. We need more farms. Our farms are being lost at a phenomenal rate. They're lost to development. They're lost to solar farms. We need the open space, and we owe a debt of gratitude to Smiling Hill Farm for providing us with some of that open space and using it not just for their own purposes, but using it to educate children, to educate the community. I'd also like to know how many stores use their products, how many stores sell their products. I know up in Winthrop, our local Hannaford has Smiling Hill Farm products. They're not just Gorham. I'd like to know how many cross-country skiers enjoy their trails and how far away they come from. These are some questions that I think need to be asked, and to compare what we would be losing with what we would be gaining. Are we really interested in bringing in more people or more cars, or are we more interested in preserving the treasure that we have here in Smiling Hill Farm? Thank you.
Can you hear me? Great. So one of the things that I'm concerned about is also Smiling Hill Farms. One of the things that was said when I was over in that station was that one of the reasons they can't go around Smiling Hill Farms is because the speed they want on that connector. If you for the efficiency, you don't have to be going 65. You could slow it down. That curve has to be less, or it could be sharper, and you could avoid Smiling Hill Farms. Another thing is a lot of like they said, the studies are older. A lot has changed. And one of the ways, why are the roads different on the 22 now than before? Well, a lot more people can telecommute now, and we could expand that even further. And I know that's not part of your study because you're transit, but this is a modern age and not everything travels by road. It doesn't have to physically travel. Some things we can work from our homes and not have to commute if the state would help and the towns and stuff would invest in more broadband internet and bringing more of that in. I had a lot of people who worked from home and they only got forced back to the office because their broadband internet was not, they didn't actually have broadband internet, or it was unreliable because we have a little bit of a monopoly issue. So there's, you know, it's another avenue to consider, especially before, because eminent domain is a serious thing that should be a last resort. And, you know, things have changed since a lot of these initial studies, and they need to be looked at. Who are these commuters? How do you actually get the commuters off the road? Give them tools they don't have to commute. Also, we mentioned land use planning. Well, how about some businesses in Gorham so everyone doesn't have to commute to Portland, South Portland? That would also help us with our tax base and our other issues we have here as well. So thank you.
Can everyone hear me? My name is Adia Grogan. I'm from Kennebunk. Looking around when I first got here, I'm definitely in the louder. Is that better? Okay. Looking around when I first got here, I feel like I'm definitely in the younger age bracket of a lot of people here. And I fear that implementing this plan sets a precedent for more roads and more roads going east to west, up Main, going through any number of farmlands, anything like that. On top of this, as the little boy said right at the beginning with crossing over the brooks, and I know you said, oh, well, the emissions are going to be lower because we're going to be going faster and people aren't just going to be sitting in their cars. What about the emissions from the actual construction and the destruction of the land? What about the runoff that goes into those that ends up in the oceans? And a big part of this is about the economy and how can we economize these areas. The economy of Maine is heavily dependent on tourism. And why do tourists come here? For our land, for our lobster, for our food, for the people. Big one there is lobster. I don't know how much you know about ocean and coastal acidification. I did my master's in it. It is a huge issue that Maine is facing. The Gulf of Maine is warming at a much more rapid rate than the rest of the world due to the specific kind of runoff that we have going into our waters. What we are talking about doing here is only going to contribute to that and is only going to perpetuate it further. I think if we want to economize, we need to make sure that our environment is doing well. And you used the hot word sustainability a couple times in your presentation. Sustainability is really a tripart issue, and I feel like you only hit two of them. You look at economic and you look at social and how those interact. And we kind of just throw environmental as, oh, we'll deal with it when we get there, but we're here. It's an issue now. It's an issue that needs to be dealt with when we do these things, or we need to not do them and come up with other solutions. We need to break the status quo, because when I'm all of your age, I don't want to be having the same goddamn conversation about why the earth is dying. And I think that this is the start of that. I think that there are solutions that can be tried that can work towards that before we go through farmland, before we take down these forests, before we create further runoff. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dan Waite. I'm a lifelong Westbrook resident. And one thing that really shocked me was that line across that field. Can you imagine Central Park in New York City isn't much bigger than Smiling Hill Farm? Can you imagine the reaction of New Yorkers if they said, oh, we're going to put a 4-lane highway right through Central Park so we can move more people around? How well do you think that would fly? Smiling Hill Farm is our Central Park. There are, we're losing farms like crazy in Maine, especially southern Maine. That's one of the few remaining ones. Now let's just cut it up. These ladies had a great point. Why don't we change the Maine Turnpike Authority to the Maine Digital Superhighway Authority and create broadband internet so that we can have stay-at-home commuting? Where I work, one of the best things that happened was the pandemic when everybody had to stay home. But we still had to operate on a global level. We could not work. So what did they do as a solution? They set up everybody in their homes that could telecommute. They bought them broadband access if they didn't have it, and they set them up, paid for ergonomic workstations for them at home, and took 300 cars off the road. Don't need the road if you don't use the car. So let's create the main digital superhighway authority and get rid of the main turnpike authority.
Thank you.
We had one more over here.
Okay,
Okay. Let me just see. Could
Jim
everybody-
Donnelly.
Hold on. Could everybody who wants to speak raise their hand so I can just sort of see where? Yep.
No, it's
Okay.
important.
So the gentleman standing up in the back. Yep.
What are we doing?
Me or?
I was first.
Go ahead.
Jim Donnelly, I'm a Westbrook resident. And I think following what the woman over here said about her hoarder neighbor, this is a classic example of doing what doesn't work until it doesn't work better. And I'm a live one. Another gentleman over here brought up New Jersey, and that's where I'm from. I'm from New Jersey, the much reviled New Jersey, for good reason. And we've seen this time and time and time again in New Jersey, these same proposals and their work through, and it's just like Groundhog Day, over and over and over again. And it's also the land of the Sopranos. You know, connectors and stuff like that, they're very fond of down there because it's a great place to take somebody for a ride. You know what I'm saying? Great place to take somebody for a ride. But anyway, what I wanted to address was in a lot of the environmental issues. The private automobile thing is completely over with. It's just that nobody's gotten the memo yet. Nobody's gotten the memo yet. We are on the other side of what's known as Hubbert's curve. We are on the downside of peak oil. Hubbert predicted it. I think it was in the 1950s that he predicted that we would be on this downside in 1970. He was off by 1 year. We peaked in 1971. We are now at the other side of that, where what is known as EO over EI, energy obtained over energy invested. It is far too expensive now to get any of this energy anymore. One of the reasons that you saw so much fracking, which was an extremely capital-intensive thing that brought poisons to Pennsylvania, to the upper Midwest, was because they were using our money to do it. They were using all of the tax breaks and the tax subsidies that they got in order to do this fracking, to keep this whole private automobile thing going. This is completely done with. I don't think anybody in this room wants to get used to atmospheric rivers, which is what we've been seeing in California. The catastrophic fires that we have just recently seen in California, in Canada, I should say, the catastrophic fires we've been seeing in Portugal and Spain, all of this will continue to happen. What just happened Saturday night is also a product of it. More and more water vapor going into the air, and as this other young woman brought up, the acidification of the oceans. This is going to continue to happen. I'll leave you. I don't want to be too long-winded because I know, and you know, I got the Irish gift of gab, so I could stay up here all night, especially if we had a few beers flowing, we could really get going here, get it really up on its feet. But anyway, let me leave you with one proverb, an Arab proverb. Arab gentleman who is in the good graces of oil, and his family has gotten rich off of it. And he said, "My father rode a camel. I ride in the back of a limousine. My son flies a Learjet. His son will ride a camel.
Thank you. I just had a couple of questions for the planners. My name is Miles. I live in Portland. I didn't hear this, but how many cars is the road estimated to carry?
Approximately 20,000 vehicles per day.
20,000 vehicles per day. Okay. And what will the tolls be?
Tolls have not yet been determined because the project has not yet been fully defined.
Has not been fully defined.
Yep.
And how much is it going to cost?
I think what has been quoted is something north of $200 million. Again, the project has not yet been fully defined.
Okay. Because I talked to a gentleman over there with a main turnpike sticker, and he said 250 million. That's probably 50 million here, 50 million there. It's just spare change, right? Yeah. It's your money, right? It's money that's going to come out of these towns to pay for this road, this one giant solution. And there's a lot of interesting talk about transit alternatives, about land use planning, which we also need. Those solutions are not going to come from the Main Turnpike Authority. I don't even blame you guys, right? I mean, you've been hired to sell us on this project. The Main Turnpike Authority has been told by the legislature to come up with a study. You guys make hammers, you found a nail, and you're nailing and nailing and nailing. This is a much more complicated problem than one highway can solve. And I think we've heard myriad reasons why that's the case. And at $50 million per mile, think of what we could get instead. The young lady over there talking about high-speed internet access. So I work for the Maine Broadband Coalition. The entire state budget to fix our broadband problem in Maine is $250 million. Where could we double that budget in a day? It's not enough money to get everybody the fiber optic internet they would need to work at home, to have that doctor's appointment at home, to study from home, to not have to drive to Gorham to go to USM, to not have to drive from Gorham to Portland to go to USM in Portland. All of these solutions take cars off the road. We have a 13-year-old study that tells us that this highway is a solution after the biggest disruption in human behavior in the last 100 years. We have self-driving cars that will, according to the lunatics who designed them, say that they will make traffic flow much more smoothly. And, you know, and we haven't tried that. We haven't tried the rotaries. We haven't tried the bus rapid transit. Where is the funding source for the bus rapid transit solution? Where is the funding source for the changes in land use? Where is the funding for all of these other solutions that could take a dent out of the problem? We don't have those funding sources. We do have this one mechanism, which is to toll people to drive on this one specific kind of road. That's why these other solutions haven't been tried, because it involves a lot of agencies and a lot of people and a lot of elected officials and town leaders getting together to figure out a much more complicated solution that actually works for the 21st century. Instead, we're getting a 20th century solution to a 21st century problem. And this whole thing makes me think that we have tried nothing and we are all out of ideas. Let's try all this other stuff. And as this gentleman said, if we can't make it work, then let's bulldoze his house. But I would like us to try everything else first. Thank you.
Great, I'll go first. That's my dad, so he's part of this group. Okay, so I agree with everything everybody. Oh, thank you. I am Hannah Hamblin. I live in Scarborough. I grew up in Gorham. I wanted to speak from the perspective of a young person who left Maine and came back with the dream of building my life here. I want to hopefully inherit my family farm, which is over 200 years old in the center of Gorham, right off of 202. You probably all have seen it. It's got the big poles. That's us. So one of my worst fears since I was 10 years old was that farm being cut in half through eminent domain when I saw the bypass that you mentioned be put in through farms. So I'm just speaking from the perspective of I came here to oppose this because of Smiling Hill Farm. I do not want to inherit a farm that may someday be cut in half. I don't think most young people in this state want that vision for our future. When you consider the impact a highway has through a nature and agricultural area, it's pretty astonishing. I'd like to know if you guys have done noise pollution, light pollution, air pollution, all of those studies on Smiling Hill Farm. When you point out that, it's not going to impact the farm or the lumber yard, that's not really what I think most people are concerned about. It's more about having a highway right through the middle of a farm that everybody loves. And the idea that all of your kids are coming back to inherit highways. So I'm going to pass this down to my father, but I would love to hear an answer to my questions when we're done.
Thanks, Hannah, my daughter. I'm Charlie Hamblin, grew up in Gorham, been here a long time. My family's been here a long time. One quick question, then a comment. My memory, I'm getting older, but didn't the city council of Portland vote against supporting this project? Wasn't that in the newspaper recently? So I think it would be fair if you put that up there someplace, not only the people supporting you, but the people who disagree, to be fair to everyone. And my comments related to the study we first talked about, 2012, give me a break. COVID, did that happen? Not for you guys, but it did for everyone else. AI is coming and just taking things away. The world has changed. Trying to sell us this project based on a 2012 survey data. And I looked at all your other reports through 2019. You did nothing after COVID, and you're trying to sell us on a project that you don't even know what you have out there today is ridiculous. Two other things in the 2020 contest you talked about, safety. You keep talking safety. Now, I'm an insurance geek. I worked in the insurance industry for like 40 years, and there's studies coming out today saying there is an increase in accidents on the roads. It's not volume related, it's distracted drivers. So unless the Turnpike Authority is going to take away people's phones, you're not going to get any safety improvement. So if you can't prove it or quantify it, you ought to drop it because it doesn't help your credibility. Now I'm losing it. I'm getting so the other part was pollution. You go to a certain speed, you're certainly going to reduce emissions. But I think in February, 7% of the vehicles in the United States were hybrids or EVs. That's increasing. It's not going to go down. So using pollution as an excuse to build this is also lacks credibility from your part. So you need to update this study with what's really going on today if you're going to sell us, because otherwise you're going to have a lot of doubters because it just does not add up. And my last comment, so yeah, I grew up on a farm that's been in Gorham, my family since 1783. I wake up every day. I don't do it full time, but I go and work and I see how hard it is. And I know a lot of farmers and how much sweat and tears they put in that place. And, I think everybody in this room, there's a lot of disagreement, but I think almost everybody here thinks Maine is a wonderful place. And we want to protect it. We want to preserve it. We want to bring it forward to future generations. What's beautiful about it? Open space, farms, hardworking people, wonderful things going on. How many people here have been to Smiling Hill Farm or brought their kids or grandkids? Is there anybody who hasn't been there? My God, the fact of trying to remove that for a road is incomprehensible to me. And I'll be quiet. Thank you for listening to me.
So a bunch of questions in there. I want to be fair to answering questions. So noise study completed. Part of the documentation will be available. Air quality study completed. Part of the documentation will be available. I'm trying to think what other questions were in there just so that you can be aware. Thank you. COVID traffic. Great. Can you bring up the COVID traffic slide? So that was one of the things that we got asked hard by the agencies. when we came out of or started to come out of COVID in the, 2021, 2022. Traffic's changed. Do we still need to do this? So what we've done, what will be part of our documentation, and we'll share a snapshot of this in a second, is what we see is that COVID changed things, and it changed things for a period of time. What we see today and what we want to make sure that we evaluate appropriately today are the fact that traffic volumes, for the most part, are back to or above where they were. Is the composition different? I don't disagree with that for a second. There's certainly an increase in the number of folks that are working from home. Conversely, there's an increase in the amount of deliveries that are going to home. So, one of the things that we look at, you able to find that, Ray? Okay. He'll bring this up in a second. Again, we have to do our diligence. We have to answer, sir, that very straightforward question you had. What does this look like? We look at traffic volumes on the overlap, Running Hill Road, Route 25, Route 22, 2016, 2019, right before COVID, right after. We're seeing traffic volumes at or above where they were after COVID. Is that true on every road in the state of Maine? I don't know because I haven't looked at every road in the state of Maine. But those significant routes, 22, 25, 114, the overlap, they are at or above where they were in COVID. This is my data. This is Maine DOT's data. This is 2022. We know 2023 is greater in most circumstances. So again, fair question, absolutely fair question. Traffic is at or above where it was before. And I don't know if you had any other questions in there that I wanted to make sure we answered. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, with light pollution.
What's that?
Have you done a light pollution assessment?
Have not, because again, the project has not yet been fully designed. Define the y-axis. I'm sorry, the number on the left is the number of vehicles per day. 25 is the road that runs through Gorham into Westbrook. She wanted to know why we included Route 25. Yep. And Route 25 is one of those major east-west routes that is challenged due to congestion because of the volume of traffic coming from the western communities coming into the Portland region every day.
So hold on, guys. Maybe it would go quicker if you guys who have questions ask them and we will repeat the questions and answer it. Is that a good thing? Okay. So what was your question, sir? No? How many live on Running Hill Road?
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so this gentleman, this gentleman is saying that he doesn't think traffic on Running Hill Road is the same, is worse than it was during COVID. It's less.
So
And
again,
a few other people are saying the same thing.
Happy to look at it, not data that we have. This is data from the Maine Department of Transportation. So again, we're utilizing data because again, it's a fair question. Has traffic come back? Is it at or above where it was before? From what we see from the data that we are provided, the answer to that question is yes.
All right. So I'm sorry.
Can't just start yelling out.
This was. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to go back to what we did before because too many people can't hear. All right. So you said there's two people over there. Okay. You did two to them and then ma'am, you third. Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Good evening, folks. My name is David Kent. I guess I call myself an antique fanboy. I lived in Gorham for over 30 years and ran a riding stable. Now I happen to live in Standish. And somehow I got myself in a pickle where I found myself president of Maine Farm Bureau. At our board of directors meeting this past Tuesday, the board directed me to pass a message on to you folks that do whatever possible you can to avoid Smelling Hill Farms. Now, I'll just start by saying we probably ought to stop saying where we can agree and then where we can disagree. And there is a traffic problem on 22 and 114. I know I traveled that for 34 years because I was part of USDA and had an office in Scarborough. I had to get up early in the morning, get my farm chores done so I could get to work on time. And I stayed at the office later at night until after tractor to get out of the way, then come home. The other thing is, I think we all agree that Mother Nature is not making any more farmland. So we got to use what we can do prudently. And there was a study, I think, put out by the university that between 2017 and 2022, that in the state of Maine, we lost a little over 550 farms, and we lost a little over 82,000 acres of farmland. So, and particularly here in southern Maine, we have very few farms compared to central and northern Maine. I grew up on a dairy farm up in the little town of Benton, whereby the highway goes right through. And then my work took me down here, and I've been here for 51 years. But anyway, I just want to emphasize that my board of directors told me specifically last Tuesday that to pass a message along that please do whatever you can to avoid Smelling Hill Farms. When I walked around the room tonight, the thing that concerned me as just an antique farm boy is when I saw how close that's going to the farm, a third of a mile to a quarter of a mile, then there's an interchange right there. That's going to impact the daily operation of that farm a lot more than anybody here realizes. So again, thank you. And I'm looking around, I saw earlier Senator Boyle and Senator Brennan, and I expected them to hold up a clock that says you've got 3 minutes, because that's what they do in the legislature. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is this working? Oh, good. My name is Michael Knight. I represent the 13th generation of the Knight family, and I currently live on Smiling Hill Farm. Now, the Maine Turnpike has to paint a pretty picture of this to us, and I'm worried about what they say, but I'm more worried of what they're not saying. And this beautiful picture right behind us that my brother was so fortunate to bring, and I think it was you that put this line across here. Well, one of our meetings, Mr. Mills and some others brought a picture of a bridge that crosses County Road. That is 20 feet high. I thought it would go down and follow this line. It carries right across high. So these trees that you see will not be there. You will see a berm. Okay? So when Calpine came in, they said, you'll never see the smokestacks. I see them every morning when I go down my driveway. When a solar field was built behind the house, I never thought to ask. The leaves fell. The solar panels are exposed. And the wood line that I used to see with the sun going down, I see it going down over solar panels now. So that being said, this is all wetland. We mentioned Red Brook quite a few times here. Red Brook starts here. This road will be built on top of where Red Brook starts. It's the head of Red Brook. And if you cut, if you cut the snake's head off, you kill the snake. And that's what's going to happen to Red Brook. I don't care how you design. And I'd like to take this time to thank all our supporters that came here tonight. This is going to be a tough fight, and we need you to support Smiling Hill Farm. We've been here since 1720. My family has been working this farm for 1720. That's a long time. That was before George Washington was even born, before the United States was the United States. I think we deserve, by being here and preserving the land, opening it to the public. Everybody's welcome to have an ice cream here, to be free of eminent domain. Now, they say this is going to be built on the western end. You really won't see it from the ice cream parlor. They might be right, but I'll hear it. But there's something else that's involved. And it's like, I enjoy a margarita on the back deck of the Florida Keys. It just tastes better than it does on the back deck of my house in Westbrook. Why is that? You know, I can say the same about my ice cream. My ice cream is going to taste better when you're sitting there eating your ice cream cone, looking over the fields with the grazing cows. Your ice cream tastes better, but it won't taste better if you're looking at a bypass going through. Thank you for the time, and thank you for being here. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Nichols, and I live here in Gorham. And I have just a couple of comments. One is that there seems to be two issues. There's the issue of Smiling Hill Farm that a lot of people are concerned about impacting that. And then there's the issue of the traffic. And the issue of the traffic, we have to look at both issues, but we can't just throw away the fact that we have a problem with traffic because we're concerned about the farm. We have to maybe look at both of those things. So first off, I work in schools. I don't have an opportunity to work from home. I have to commute because the kids come every day. And when I worked in hospitals, the same thing happened. I had to be there every day because that's where my job was. That's where I needed to be. And a lot of people do. They don't have the option of working at home. The traffic issue, not only is the traffic, since I've lived in Gorham just about almost 11 years now, the traffic has always been an issue because I've worked in Westbrook. I'm now working in Gray. So in Westbrook, oh my goodness, the traffic's crazy going back and forth. Well, I grew up in New York, and I do not like traffic. I've lived in Maine for almost 50 years now, and I don't want any traffic. And there is truly traffic coming from Westbrook to Gorham, and there's traffic coming from Scarborough to Gorham. So we have that issue. We also have one of the things I love about Westbrook is the diversity of the people who we've brought into that community. And now when you bring a lot of people and you look at all the growth and the town growth and the amount of houses that have been built, all those people have to get around. So we can't just put a bag over our head. And believe me, you can ask my husband, I am an environmentalist. The last thing I want to see is a tree cut down and any kind of habitat destroyed. But we have to have a balance. We need to somehow commute back and forth and not be sitting in traffic. So I've been excited since I've gotten to Gorham, even though there was a slight possibility you might take some of my land, to see that there is going to be something done with the traffic. But my heart just gets ripped out hearing about Smiling Hill. And I know we're at a spot where you're not completely set with your plan, that maybe that's the part that needs to be looked at a little more, is if there's a way of snaking around there, you know, and looking at places that don't disrupt, especially a farm that's been here for 300 years. So Thank you.
Thank you. You, sir, ma'am over there, and then you in the front row. Oh, here.
Okay, I'm Bob from Buxton. I just have a few quick questions. Could you bring up the slide with the planned area? The whole area, no. Yeah, no, the one with the plan. The study area, yes, thank you. Thank you. So I'm looking at this and I know we're all worried about the congestion in the area, but I'm wondering if you zoom out on this whole picture, where's it coming from? Where's it going to? Why did we focus on this small area? Why aren't we looking at the bigger picture? And the other question was, the focus also seems to be centered around exit 45, and we're not looking at an already established exit 46. And, you know, if you were to exit off of 46, you could go over the top of Smiling Hill and bypass the whole situation. Also, Smiling Hill, I think, has deserved a historic landmark status, and I think it should be avoided at all costs.
So to answer your question, why does it feel like we're just looking at a small area? Well, the reality is the number of communities to the west that travel through this area is fairly sizable. You know, whether they're continuing down 22 County Road, heading to 46 and getting on the Turnpike, going down 114 Gorham Road and going to exit 45 of the main mall area, or heading over to Route 1. There's a lot that goes on in this space. A lot of folks from Standish, Hollis, Buxton, Leamington, you know, communities to the west, when they're going to the greater Portland region, a large number of them are going through this area. And again, I think it's evident. I think it's been supported here tonight in several statements, the fact that, you know, congestion is fairly notable here. So it is a bigger picture problem without question. And we're focused in a place where we're trying to, you know, the fact that we're looking at potentially connecting to exit 45 isn't by chance. When you connect to exit 45, you can go north on the Turnpike, south on the Turnpike, keep going to get on 295, head on over to Route 1, a multitude of opportunities to get to where people are working or going and, you know, going to the mall, going to different areas. So it is, from our perspective, a big picture evaluation. It just, a lot of the challenges that are presenting itself here are presenting itself the greatest here in this area around the overlap.
Could you put the slide with the route on it?
Sure. Ray, can you give me the slide of the route, please? Doing great.
So, but the route here is going through the south here. If you were coming off of 46, you could go north through the industrial section, follow the power line area there. There's already a right of way, and avoid the farmland altogether. Relocating a few businesses is easier than chopping down a bunch of houses.
So are you saying, let me make sure I'm understanding, let me make sure I'm understanding your question correctly. So you're talking about building a road
Right through that, yeah, that way.
here?
Not quite through but down lower, there's a quarry there, right on Spring Street, just under the Smiling Hill Farm sign. You see the power lines are running parallel there. So following the power line.
So is my line, sir, describing what you're
close,
describing?
Pretty close, yes.
Okay.
What's that? Yeah, all above Smiling Hill.
Okay. Great. Thank you for that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was just, did you consider that area? That's what I'm saying.
We did not look at a route from exit 46 out along roughly the alignment you're describing. We did not. Again, one of the things we've tried to do is a large number of the folks that live in the communities to the west are looking to get to I-295 to be able to get into Greater Portland, to go north to Greater Portland. So again, from our perspective, from a transportation perspective, We're trying to get people to 295 and the main turnpike as efficiently as we can. So both of those roads, from a transportation perspective, are important to try to connect to. That is why our evaluation is focused in and around exit 45. They'd have to keep going down Congress Street all the way into Portland. And again, just the challenge is Congress Street is only so wide, and adding additional traffic, you'd have to do something to Congress Street.
Thank you. Hello?
Yep.
You're all set.
My name is Maria Fuentes. I live in Hollowell. I work for Maine Better Transportation Association. We're a statewide coalition. We have a lot of members in this area and in Cumberland County and beyond. And our members either work for or represent or advocate for all the different modes of transportation. So I just wanted to say, first of all, that we really appreciate the work that the 4 communities on the slide have done for so many years. And then obviously they asked the Maine Turnpike and the DOT to help them combat the region's mobility, congestion, and safety problems, which we've been hearing about for 40 years. The fact that these 4 communities banded together to come up with a regional solution, I think they deserve a lot of credit. I'm going to get right to my question because I know there's others who want to speak. But I've heard tonight, but I've also, seen either with the local press or elsewhere that, if the cost is 200 or if the cost is 250 million or whatever it is, that those dollars would be better used for something else, whether it's light rail or whatever. But I think it would be helpful if you could explain to us whether $250 million that the turnpike would have to raise in tolls can just be switched over to broadband or whatever the ideas are going into this.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, would you let him answer the question? Yeah, it's also one that there's a lot of misunderstanding about.
So the answer is no. Tolls cannot simply just be taken and redirected from the turnpike and used for other purposes. That being said, Maine Turnpike Authority does have a partnership with DOT where they look to do things where they can do them in immediate proximity to the department, to the turnpike, where they can, improve transportation. But really, tolls are meant to be used on the turnpike. So your answer to your question is no. Diverting them to broadband, diverting them to other uses outside of what's been identified today, the answer to that question is no.
Okay. The money is coming from the people who drive on the road, okay? So I'd like to move on to this gentleman who's been waiting.
Hi, I'm Eli Schifrin. I'm from Bethel, Maine. And being from Western Maine, I grew up fishing and I love to fish. And that love for fishing continued as I grew up. And I got to look at climate change and native brook trout, and that allowed me to go to college, which was pretty sweet. And I now go to college at Bowdoin in Southern Maine. And I was very happy and lucky to go there and stay in Maine. And I was very excited that I could stay at a spot that cared about the environment and I could keep on fishing. Now, this new highway goes right through Red Brook. And what's really special about this is it has a self-sustaining population of native brook trout. And that is very important to the state. Fishing in Maine is 3,300 jobs. It's like 330 million to the state's economy. It's a big deal. And having everyone living in Southern Maine and having this little river that has the fish that symbolizes Maine. Maine is the last stronghold of native brook trout in the US, is very special, allowing people to get out and to go fishing. And also being at college, I get to write a paper about this, which is great. And it's because I'm passionate about it. I like the environment. And if I go to my professors this week And I'm like, hey, this is the data. It seems good, but it's 10 years old. They're going to laugh at me. I can't go up to them and use data that's this old when I know all of the science for environmental research and with highways that are then going to impact the water quality has changed. We know more, and building a highway that's going to be around here for a while is a big deal. And I don't see why we shouldn't just wait 3 years, do another study if we're going to spend all this money on it. So we're very confident in what we're doing, because like you said, the worst thing we want to do is build it and then have to change it. So why don't we just wait like a year or two, try some other options, do some more studies. And it seems like well done, but like we always can know more, and the science is always changing. So why don't we just wait a little more? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. So the gentleman in the red shirt and the person behind in the orange hat are next.
I am Tim Lambert, Scarborough resident, lifelong Mainer. I saw on one of your slides earlier, you mentioned that improving the roads in the area and potentially fixing the intersections would only last us until 2053. In 2053, my 2 boys will be in their 30s. I'm okay with them making the decision if they need to build a highway or not. I don't need to make this decision for them. If we can improve the traffic situation by fixing what we have now, rather than cut through and it just completely scar the environment and just take away things that are irreplaceable, let's let them make that decision. That's not up to us to make. Let's let the kids figure that if they got a problem with it in 30 years, 29 years, 30 years from now, I'm good with them deciding if they need to spend the money at the time. When I drive to work sometimes, I take the 295 connector from Scarborough to 295. And what I see is a giant empty road. They built capacity ahead of demand. And by doing so, I don't know what they were thinking. I assume that road was built in the 1960s. I don't know what they were thinking, but that road is always empty, except for, when a few cars are coming through in little spurts, when the light turns green, you get little spurts going down 295, that 295 connector. So Maine DOT is responsible for resurfacing that road every few years, 4 lanes of highway, about 175 to 200 feet from tree line to tree line, that's never used. So here you are building a road that's about the same width, 22,000 cars a day for, that's nothing. For a road this size, for a 4-lane highway, 22,000 cars a day. You know what I do when I get to the 295 connector? Okay, I don't do this. My friends do this. We gun it. It's a drag race. That's all it is. So you get a 2-lane highway, and what do you want to do? You want to go faster than the guy next to you. You're racing just to hurry up and get there ahead of them so you can get on 295 before them. That's all it is. I don't need to save 15 seconds to get from, Route 1 to 295 to get to work. And that's what this is too. This is, you're going to shave off a few minutes. Somebody mentioned here, you don't know traffic. It's true. Traffic, I've been to LA, I've been to New York City, I've been to Boston, I've been all over New England, all over the country. We don't get traffic in Maine. If you want traffic, go to Dallas, go to LA, try to get from the north side of LA to the south side of LA. And, if you want to experience traffic. And the last thing I'll say is by turning this road over to the Maine Turnpike Authority to let them take care of it seems like an excuse to let the Maine DOT and the towns of Scarborough and Gorham to further let Route 22 and Route 114 deteriorate. I see this all the time when I'm walking down my street, that my street doesn't get any attention because it's not a shiny new street. It's not the center of town. It's not where we're focusing. So I have sidewalks that need to be replaced that will never get replaced because it's not a focus. And that's what we see on 22 and 114 right now. I ride my bike on those roads. And I know one of the town councilors said that somehow building this highway, and I think it wasn't even in your slide, somehow building this highway is going to improve cycling on those roads. Well, if we can fix those roads right now, we don't need a highway to fix those roads. So, my point is that I just feel like this is just going to be another excuse to further neglect the roads and the things that we already have. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that's right.
Hi, my name's Drew. I'm from Westbrook. So a lot of people talked all about the traffic and the congestion that's going on. Nobody has actually spoken about who it is. Who is all this congestion that is outside your houses, that is backed up down the roads, that is making everything slow down? It's me. I'm here. Hello. You all hate me, and I hate me too. And my girlfriend as well. The reason that all this congestion is going back and forth is Portland's really, really bad economic policies, which really just drives home tourism, and possibly some really, really high-end office work. On top of this whole league of food service and all this congestion you see going in and out, these people largely are me. We are low-wage food service workers who absolutely, because of their economic policy in Portland, can't live in Portland. Barely anybody can live in Portland. Do you think Mainers can afford that? That's all rich people from away, nearly. And so we all have to live in the adjacent towns. We have to make your roads awful for you. It's us. And building this road, which is going to be, I think you guys haven't considered something. You're going to fund it by tolls, and that's good. It's not being funded by a taxpayer. That's a good thing. But here's the thing: if the people that you're trying to get to use this road are the people who are already low-wage restaurant food service workers in Portland, largely, are they going to go on the road that has a toll on it, or the one that's free but, yeah, congested? That's one thing. I want to know if you've considered the actual people who are going to use it are going to pay this toll, because I barely can afford to like get around already. And I took the bus and then walked to get here anyway, which I'm very lucky and I'm thankful for that bus, but that already costs money. The other thing is people talked a lot about the studies around environmental stuff with regards to Red Brook. People have spoken on Red Brook already. I ain't going to speak more on it, but they are largely right. But there's something that I thought of, which I think no one else brought up as well, which is that there has been a study somewhat recently wherein people have found out that runoff from these roads in the form of, I say these roads, any road in the world, because of rubber tires. Rubber tires break down over time. That's not a bad thing. That's just how it is. It kind of sucks for the environment, though, because that it breaks down into a particulate, very small, that coats the sides of the road. So if there's forest or Smiling Hills farmland on the sides of any road, it's going to get polluted with this rubber particulate. And that's if this Red Brook, which I didn't know about, is in that area, that's going to get completely polluted with this rubber particulate from tires. And if there's I think you guys said protected fish that lives in that Red Brook, they're going to be eating that rubber particulate. So have you guys considered the people that are probably not going to want to pay this toll? And have you guys considered the pollution from vehicles going over this road itself that's going to affect the cows at Smiling Hill Farm, probably, since they eat the hay that would be growing adjacent to this road that you're going to build right through their farm? And also, apparently, these fish that live in a brook I didn't know was there. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So you in the red sweater, and ma'am, you in the red jacket. Is there anybody else in red we can get? How about you in the purple? Okay.
Hi.
Well,
Can you hear me?
you want to talk about the percent?
So answering the question, sir, around do we take into consideration the value of people's time and whether or not they would use the facility? The answer is yes. So when we look at a new facility, whether it's tolled or not tolled, we look at if the travel time savings is significant enough to where the amount of toll that might be paid is enough to get them to change their desire and now travel on a tolled route. So the simple answer is yes. If you want a really detailed discussion, happy to go there and talk about travel demand modeling and how we look at different users and what their different value at time is and whether it's a commercial vehicle versus a passenger car vehicle. Happy to do that. Simple answer to your question is yes. In terms of Red Brook, I thought Judy summarized it fairly well, fairly early. Concerns around Red Brook are very appropriate. And again, those agencies that are charged with making sure that if anything is done, it's done appropriately so that there is no negative impact. That's what they're doing. So I know I'm overly simplifying. The wonderful, wonderful woman in the front can answer this way better than I can. But again, that is part of the charge and challenge is, can this be done in a way that does not create more harm and it can create an opportunity to be better? So answering your questions. Thank you.
Wait.
What?
We've already got 3 people lined up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hi, I came to the front so you don't have to all crane your necks. My name is Liz. I live in Portland. I've lived most of my life here, except for some time in my 20s traveling a bunch. I guess what I'm feeling, and I always feel this way with these things, is I understand it's not personable, but it feels disingenuous because we're always told, oh yeah, we're thinking about multi-modes, but we got to build this highway first. And then, oh, we only have like 5% of the money we need to do anything meaningful in any of the other modes. And it's like, you don't need to spend $1 million in a study to know that you're going to have sound pollution and you're going to have heat islands and you're going to have loss of tree canopy and you're going to have runoff and you're going to have light and you're going to have disturbance of the human and wildlife experience. So even if you're only cutting a swath 100 feet wide, you're going to hear it from a mile away. You're going to disturb every bird that's trying to fly overhead or live anywhere within miles of this. Like, the impacts are massive. It's the same thing with transportation alternatives. Like, I know we have this Sensible Transportation Act, which requires that you pursue every other alternative. So like, why don't we have 5-minute headways on the bus? Why don't we have a local circulator bus? Why don't we have a safe, pleasant, multi-use path that you'd let your 10-year-old bike all the way from Gorham to Portland? Because it's not that far. It's just not safe and it's not pleasant. Why don't we already have a village-style town center? Why haven't we been working with employees to stagger commute times? Why haven't we been working with employers to have more remote work allowed? You know, there's all these things that we could do. And if we had started them 12 years ago, we might be in a different place today, but we're not. And I really question this whole concept of really, honestly, the Turnpike Authority at all, because why shouldn't we be using money from tolls to pay to build the communities that we want going forward? And if what that community needs is to rebuild its town center to be village oriented, or if what this community needs is bike paths for kids to get to school from where they live, why shouldn't we be able to spend the money on that? I mean, I think we need to retool this whole thing and to say, we're not going to make somebody's commute 1 minute faster until everybody has transportation, period. There was a blind woman at the press conference at Smiling Hill Farm today. And, you know, when she lost one job, she was unemployed for 3 years until the bus service started between Gorham and Portland. You know, that's a huge difference in someone's life. And when you add up all the disabled people and the kids who are too young and the people who are too poor, you have a huge number of people. It's probably 50% of all the residents of a town who don't have easy access to a car. And because I live in Portland, you know, I think about the work that I've been doing is mostly about trying to make housing easier to build in Portland, because I want you to be able to live in Portland and walk everywhere so that there's more people on the streets, that it's a more social place, that there's fewer cars. Because most of what we say when we don't like cities is we don't like cars. And it makes sense, because when you have a car moving 20 miles an hour, if you get hit, you have a 90% chance of surviving. If you get hit by a car moving 40 miles an hour, you have a 90% chance of dying. It makes sense that we don't like fast cars. The same thing with the noise of cars. 20 miles an hour, low decibel, spikes at 40 miles an hour. You know, wildlife can't survive. You can't enjoy hiking. And it's just, so it just feels disingenuous to me to say we can build a highway over a brook when we know that every stream that goes under the current turnpike, starts out Class A, the cleanest rating in the state, and ends up Class C. It's like, why do we even pretend? Why do we need to do a study about that? You know, you can, there's probably already been $1 million worth of studies done. What if we were to spend that money on stuff we know we want and love, on actually cleaning up the streams, on actually providing transit, on actually building bike trails? But it can't just be done by one agency. I mean, these are, if we're going to actually shift away from being an auto-driven society, it's going to take everybody working together. And we can't just build our way out of this. And it's not just for us, because I understand there's people, you live out in wherever you live, and you're going to have to drive to get where you need to get. But I'm talking about the next 20,000 people and the next 30,000 people. You know, Maine's population could double in the next 20 years. And if that happens, if our only solution is single family homes and cars, like, we have a serious, serious problem. So I'd like to ask that we retool how we collect and spend money, and that we can spend toll money on whatever a community needs. And I'd like to ask us all to work together to really think about changing the way that we get around and how we build our villages, so that we can have these wonderful walkable places that we pay to go on vacation and visit. Just one last final point, a personal story. So I grew up in a neighborhood near what's now the Four River Sanctuary in Portland, out at Brighton Avenue near the Breakwater School. So I can, 2 blocks from my house is a waterfall that's about 50 feet high. I can walk for an hour and a half at a time. I can actually walk all the way from there to Smiling Hill Farm, which I'm very delighted of, and we frequently do. It's amazing. It's like a 2-hour walk through woods the whole time. I have a coffee shop right there. I have a bus that's 15 miles into town, 15 minutes into town, which enables 4 adults in my household to live with only 1 car. It's amazing. And, you know, multiple people working from home. And there was supposed to be a highway connecting from 95 west to the Westbrook arterial that was built when I was a kid, 25 out there. And also well, I think it was between 295 and 95, but through what is now the Four River Sanctuary. And I don't know the whole story, but there was a oil spill in the harbor, and then they got some money in an award, and then they ended up buying this land and preserving it. And now it's like the most beloved, wonderful, wonderful place that people walk all the time. When I was a kid, we lived 3 blocks from it, but we didn't even know there was a waterfall there. But now there's trails, people spend hours and hours there, and it makes it a wonderful place to live. And I would love that for everyone here. So I hope that this opportunity creates the opportunity to actually say no to the highway. And yes, we're actually going to really value this land and acknowledge for how beautiful and precious it is. Thank you.
Okay, I've got the woman in the circle in the back. Hang on. Yes, ma'am. Are you willing to give her your turn? Okay.
Thank you. Goodness. And I don't mean to be like that. It's just my feet are getting tired. My husband is ready to divorce me. I am Priscilla Hanson Mahoney. I am a 3rd generation farmer from Falmouth Idle Knot Farm. Yes, my maiden name is Hanson, and I am sorry. But I am here to speak on behalf of Smiling Hill Farm, but also I have a question for the MTA I don't think I've heard asked or answered yet, miraculously 3 hours later. I'm concerned about blasting. Anytime you have to put in a project this large, a highway, you have to have blasting. There's a lot of bedrock, shale, a lot of things that we're going to have to blast through. I understand that part of the turnpike would go under a road, which would entail another disturbance. The last time we did a lot of blasting was when we put in 295, and everybody on Route 1 in Brunswick lost their wells. So I want to kind of think about our well quality, our water quality. Not everybody is on city water, especially folks out here, right? We have wells. Another thing I want to think about is where's that wastewater going to go? You're going, how many tons of salt do you put on the turnpike every storm that is going to wash right into the Red Brook Preserve? Salt and trout don't mix. And third, I was speaking to somebody from MTA earlier. They were talking about, well, we may put in wastewater reservoirs, whatever. I want to see that plan before we'd even think about agreeing to such a large four-way highway, lanes of asphalt that is going to take away from our farmland, our watershed, our brooks, our rivers, our streams cutting through this area. What are you going to do with the wastewater coming off this piece of asphalt? Where is it going to go? Is it going to go into Casco Bay? Are you going to divert it to the Fore River, which goes into Casco Bay? So where is all of this going to go? I understand we already have highways. We already have a lot of salt that goes into Casco Bay, but this one is going right through a watershed. So those are the two issues that I have concerns about. And then the other is I spent a lot of time this afternoon reading Governor Mills' Maine Won't Wait. I finally took it out for some good reading. If you're an insomniac, you should read it. But 4 years too late, I'm reading this plan. A lot of this project contradicts what Ms. Mills put in that plan, which was to preserve farmland. And as one gentleman said, we've already lost 564 farms since 2019. We've lost 78,000 acres of farmland, which, by the way, farmland, when it's properly maintained, is a carbon sink, which means all the bad doings that we're doing with our gas-powered motors, that farmland is counterbalancing that. So you want to talk about balance? Support our farms, support our open land. My family has a farm, 100 acres out in Falmouth. You don't think we're dealing with this every damn day? You don't know that vultures are going around our property waiting for my dad to die, who's 84 years old, still throwing hay bales, by the way. So water, let's address that. Where is it going to go? Carbon sink, let's protect our farms. Janet Mills said it in that plan. Why don't we go with that plan? And I loved everything that Liz had to say about let's take that community and try something new. Your young people tonight, the people who fish, the people who wants to start a farm, and the people who want broadband so they can study without having to drive to Portland, those young people are the voices we should be listening tonight because we're too damn old to be doing this shit.
All right, my name's Andrea Giddings, and I live
on. Hang on, your mic is not working.
Is this better? Okay, I live on County Road in Scarborough. I commute on 114 every day to the Scarborough schools on Route 1, so right during rush hour. I wouldn't call it crippling traffic. I think that's misleading. It adds about 10 minutes if I hit it at the wrong time. But mostly what I want to say is that I don't want to drive to work. I want to bike to work, but there's no shoulder on that road. I want to take a bus to work, but there's no bus. My question is maybe more for the town managers, but if they're not here, maybe you can address it too. The alternatives analysis was 12 years ago. So that seems like plenty of time to pursue rapid transit options and even a pretty good amount of time to pursue land use change options, which were the other two conclusions of that study. So my question is what the towns are doing in terms of transit and land use. This road feels like an emergency measure after 12 years of doing nothing on the other measures. I heard you say that bus rapid transport and the connector can work together, but why are we waiting for the connector to put those other pieces in place? Why have they not happened yet?
So I'll speak to what Gorham's doing, and if Tom or Josh wants to speak to the other municipalities. So in Gorham, we have done the upzoning in South Gorham to promote transit, to get the developments there that would support transit in the future. Again, we just rezoned that. The other part that Gorham has worked on is we became a partner on the Husky line and became a member of Metro. I think that's a direct correlation to what was found in the Gorham East-West Corridor study. Do I think that Gorham would be part of Husky without that study? I think it would be an uphill lift for a rural town to be part of Metro. But I think that showed the importance to the community of how transit is beneficial to get cars off the road. So I think that study helped us to do that stuff and to do mixed use. So we have, in our last comp plan, we went from, I don't think, maybe 2 mixed use districts, and we have like 6 mixed use districts now. So we have been doing a lot of work regarding zoning in Gorham. We have the Moja Corner Mixed Use District, Narragansett Mixed Use District, South Gorham Crossroads, South Gorham Corridor Commercials. Those all allow commercial and residential developments together, different scales and different uses, but all of that came out of that Gorham East-West Corridor study to look at that. But again, you have that development and get that density there to support the rapid transit. And I know Dale and the town and the municipality would be a partner as part of that rapid transit study that will look at the corridor. If it is built, how can we get rapid transit to the roundabout? We are also starting to have discussions with Standish to see how we could support their downtown with transit if we could get it that far. So all that stuff is working, but it takes time.
I just, did that answer your question, ma'am? Yeah, that's what I thought. So
Yeah, the town did undertake an update to our comprehensive plan in 2020, and it generally supports village style development in North Scarborough. Next year, we're planning on doing actual village plans for Running Hill area. I should say, keeping in mind the Gorham Connector, we're interested in exploring further village plans for the Running Hill Road area, as well as North Scarborough, the very area that we've seen on this map very often tonight. So I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. There will, our transit.
question is, will there ever be buses in Scarborough?
Our transit is really focusing on the Route 1 and the Payne Road corridor. And I think we're a little later to the game for this part of Scarborough for transit connections. But right now and historically, we've been looking at the Route 1 corridor and Payne Road.
Hi, my name is Beth Della Valle. I don't know where to stand because I want to see everybody. I'm a Portland resident. I'm a Portland native. Very fortunate enough to still live in the house that I grew up in. Otherwise, I probably couldn't afford to buy a house in Portland. I'm also a land use planner with 43 years experience planning in Maine. Many of those years, almost all of them, in fact, spent working for Maine communities. I bring a different perspective, although similar to what I've heard the other woman from Portland say earlier this evening. Albert Einstein is attributed to saying that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different outcome. There's a deep and intimate interrelationship between transportation systems, land use, environmental degradation, and erosion of the character of our towns, villages, and countryside. The costs of this proposed solution to traffic congestion are too high, and I'm not just talking about $250 million. I'm talking about the cumulative costs associated with degrading our air, our water, our landscape, and our habitats, of eroding our community character, including punishing 21st century entrepreneurs who, against all odds, have found a way to sustain a 300-year-old heritage in Smiling Hill Farm in the midst of the largest and densest region of the state. Smiling Hill is a model for farmland preservation in much of the rest of Maine. And finally, the cost of fueling additional ex-urban sprawl into the region's hinterlands beyond Gorham, the towns you were mentioning, Buxton, Standish, Baldwin, Hollis, Leamington. The bottom line is that the proposed solution, the Gorham Connector, will not work. The time savings for daily commuters will translate into an incentive for more sprawl, more congestion, more environmental degradation, and undermining of community character. We see this in virtually every metropolitan area along the East Coast and throughout the country. Why should we turn to solutions that do not work virtually anywhere else in this country, instead of doing what we do best, solve Maine's problems with solutions that are crafted to meet Maine's unique conditions and needs? We need bold redirection now. We need serious investment in public transportation. The cost of the new road will prevent and further undermine efforts to get folks out of their cars. We need serious investment in land use management, creating nodes of development. We even need even bolder considerations like breaching the silo walls of how we spend our transportation dollars, our land use dollars, and our economic development dollars. For example, we need to consider engaging in the market to subsidize the cost of housing closer to employment centers, to invest in growth-related capital investment, public water and sewer in nodes of development so you can build at a higher density, to tie economic development funds to citing job creation in nodes of development instead of just where they happen to find land where they want to grow. I repeat, we need bold redirection now. Instead of choosing the same old familiar refrain of building another new road, which does not work, and letting the air out of the balloon necessary to spur us to change our own myopic, overly individualistic decisions toward those that embrace solutions which are in our collective self-interest. I want to thank everybody for all the hard work that they've done over the years, particularly the municipalities, in taking such bold steps, which are very often are not politically popular, either because of regulation or the requirement to invest dollars. But I cannot stand by without bearing witness here. This is a bad decision, a bad investment, and it will not work. Thank you.
I'm not a public speaker. It's on. Okay. I'm not a public speaker, but I did want to express a few thoughts. My father passed away almost 9 years ago, and my mother just this last year. And although I continue to miss them every single day, I am thankful that they are not here today to witness the path of this proposed 4-lane high-speed road through their beloved Smiling Hill Farm. I manage the social media platforms for the farm and have spent hours taking pictures of our animals, our dairy products, visitors enjoying our farm, and picturesque views of our property. In fact, I took the photo that's up front 2 years ago in October. I have read and responded to comments and know what our customers, supporters, and visitors enjoy about the farm. They love our milk, ice cream, cheese, yogurt, our cows and other animals, our 100-plus-year-old big red barn, and our quiet and idyllic rural setting. I have obviously an emotional attachment to this issue, but I'm also an engineer, so if I look at it from a logical perspective, if this highway is built, there will be more houses built. More houses will be more people. People who will need to eat, and there will be an increased need for food. My question is, if farms continue to be low priority, the food will need to be trucked in from out of state, which benefits the MTA with more increased traffic and tolls. I'd like your response to that. Thank you.
So thank you for your comment. As has been stated at the beginning, we believe there's an opportunity for discussion. Don't disagree with the points you made. You know, certainly more people, more need for food, wanting to be able to preserve that opportunity. I think the opportunity here is there a discussion? And what does that discussion look like? So, you know, I like to live in a world where I think a lot of different things are possible at the same time. I think that's what we're asking here, is an opportunity to have a discussion and just see. So I appreciate your comment. I thank you for that. Would like to think that there is an opportunity to consider, can both things coexist or not? And just simply have that dialogue.
Thank you. Okay. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Art Howe. I live in South Portland. I just want to remind you, and most people know this already, but the Red Brook is very unique in being habitat for native and wild trout, extremely close to probably the most developed part of our state, which is the main mall, literally within about a mile from the main mall. To think that there were wild native trout is absolutely remarkable. So this is a very precious habitat. And I speak right now for a constituency that hasn't been mentioned before, particularly, and that's the wildlife along the corridor of Red Brook. You know, when you think of the bobcats, deer, turkeys, I don't need to go through the list, but that really hasn't been addressed, I don't think, yet, but probably will be forthcoming, as you espoused. And the other issue that concerns me from both a local but a global perspective is just this constant habitat fragmentation. And we all know the perils of habitat fragmentation. This is another step in that process, if you will. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it's a reality, and it doesn't enhance the environment in any way or enhance our wildlife and the natural beauty and history that we're so used to and we all love about Maine. And it's also a very natural tendency, and it's no criticism of you folks who are working hard, I know that, but that we overpromise and we don't always deliver on those promises. And I hope I'm proven wrong on that, and I look forward to further studies. And thank you for the time, and thank you for all of you being patient.
Thank you. Okay.
I haven't spoken to, or you haven't spoken to the other end of Gorham or what the Westbrook and my concern is sorry, Pat Donovan from Mayline Avenue in Gorham. And so my concern is we have wildlife in the area, and each year more and more is encroached. I mean, you have the golf course event coming where there's going to be multi-level housing, and there's going to be, from what I understand, there's going to be gas stations and whatever down there. That's another thing. So I just think we need to look at what we're doing to the poor animals. I mean, right now we have deer and turkeys and whatever in our backyard, and and I'm concerned about that. I do want to say though that I think we should try some different things, as people have said, before we go to the big time to have the turnpike, because just on Bartlett Road in Gorham, they have put turning lanes in, and have at the other end of Bartlett, they have a light that's synchronized. So when you drive up, it's about a minute or less. If it senses you're there and no other cars, you move along. A lot of things like that could be done now with the traffic we have before you start a big, very expensive and very environmentally hazardous event. So I just wanted our end to be spoken to too, because we do have a lot of, they've been crowded out by nearing housing everywhere. So we have multiple deer, we have every kind of bird known to man. And it's lovely and quiet, but it won't be when they have the big rigs and there'll be, breaking and doing whatever. So two things. One was I wanted to say thank you for changing some things in Gorham in the traffic patterns and things. And it could be done on an area that's a lot busier but that road has always been really clogged, and it's moving swiftly now. So there are many things that can be done other than going to having a turnpike coming through. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Okay, yep.
My name's Kathleen West. I live on Washburn Drive in Gorham. My property abuts the 114 Rotary. You speak of traffic jams. I have to leave my road every day. They aren't that bad. They might add 5-6 minutes. The biggest problem is if you put that bypass in, or whatever it's going to be called, all you're going to do is drag the traffic down the other way. Instead of going up the hill, it's going to come down the hill. You're still going to be using those roads. You're not going to have a decrease in accidents, because the one thing I've really noticed with the bypass, people have picked up their speed on every one of those roads, 114, 22, and the bypass. I listen to cars speed drag up and down the bypass all night long. That's only going to make our town more noisy. If they put this through Smiling Hill Farm, this is going to drive away any sort of wild animal with the noise pollution, the exhaust. The other thing that has not been brought up tonight is on that 114 end is in wildlife sanctuary. We're already putting developments in there, and we've already, all of us that live in Gorham have noticed how the wild animals are going right into the town of Gorham because they're being driven out of where they live. They're going right in up by our high school, which is basically not even a quarter of a mile from the center of Gorham. Deer are getting hit pretty much every night down by me. And down in the town of Gorham, they're even getting hit where the speed limit's 25. If we add this road, we are going to add speed to the main roads that drag to it, because that's what's going to happen. I see it now. We're going to see more and more of our wildlife, their habitats decimated by this going through the animal sanctuary in the town of Gorham. The other problem we have is just the noise pollution that will drive these animals out. The amount of water that'll run off this turnpike onto these places where wild animals, where the fish live, it's all going to affect them. And I want to tell one thing. I live by the Rotary. We had a tanker tip over in the Rotary, 9,000 gallons of heating fuel dumped onto my property. Do you know what the town had nothing to do with it. The state came in with those diaper things, put a whole bunch of those diaper things down, watched it for about 2 weeks. It's okay now. Everything will be fine. There's a brook that runs in front of my house, and you cannot tell me that the government is telling us the truth, that that's not going to affect our groundwater. We're all on wells. The water that wildlife and we have to drink, the state said, oh no, it's fine. They cleared it. It's fine. They never came in, dug it up, or took care of any of that. It just stayed 9,000 gallons. You can't tell me that any sort of accident added to a road like that is not going to increase the risk for everyone. We don't need to be faster on the roads. We don't need more roads. It's not going to take traffic away from the roads they're complaining about now. They're still going to travel those roads. They're just going to do it at a faster speed. I don't have any questions. I just wanted to make my statement. But I'll tell you, if they'll do it to me, they'll do it to anybody. They're going to pretend this is all good and everything's fine and we're going to keep the water clean. Please don't believe it, because that's what they don't live here. We do. Thank you.
Hang on. Sir, just one to you, because you've already spoken. I just want to see if there's anybody else who wants to speak who has not spoken. Oh, okay, we'll get to you. It's okay.
Opportunity.
So I don't see these folks and then you, okay?
Hi, my name is Lori Maines, and I live probably a half mile from the new rotary there that they put on South Street. And the noise, I can't believe, how far is it going to be from the farm, from the cows in the barn? Because the noise really increased at my house. I can't sleep in the summertime with my windows open because of the traffic, the trucks and everything shifting and racing up and down the new 112 bypass there. It's outrageous, and I can't imagine what it's going to do to the farm animals. I know what it's done to my life. It's really interfered in my life. It's very noisy. And I live in the woods. I live on a private road off South Street. But I can hear the cars, and I can't imagine, you know, and everybody says, oh, it's going to bring the vehicles away. Right now, I've heard so many people say, oh, I can't wait for this turnpike to come in so I can go up there and grab it from Standish, from Buxton, from Wyndham, instead of going to the mall or going down to the old exit 8 or going up to Gray. They all say they're going to come there. Well, you know what? It's going to cause more traffic now than what it is now, what we have now. And also they say that new rotary was going to help the traffic on 114. I still sit there for 5-10 minutes some mornings trying to take a left, sometimes trying to take a right. The only thing that helped was the tractor trailers from going up to town. It didn't stop any of that traffic, that new rotary, and it's not going to stop the turnpike. Isn't going to stop any of the traffic. It's going to make it even worse, and it's going to make it noisier, pollution. I live not too far from her. And we both complain about the noise. It's so loud. And I can imagine what it's going to do to the farm animals. And how far, can you tell me how far the turnpike's going to be from their barn?
Half a mile? From
Yeah,
the,
well, I
from the
live
barn?
half mile and it's very noisy. I can't imagine what it's going to do to those poor cows and the geese and everything else in that. And plus all the other farm animals they have. They have a nice little farmyard. What's it going to do to all those animals there? The noise. Oh, that's only a quarter mile? It's just, Knights are all telling me it's only a quarter mile. You're telling me it's a half a mile. I think I believe the Knights over you guys.
Oh. Rather than okay.
Hi, my name is Abby King. I had to leave for a little while to put my baby to bed and come back. So I'm glad to see so many people are still here. And I think it's a testament to how little public input our town managers and town officials have asked for, that this is the first opportunity we've all had to ask these questions. So the question I asked earlier, I didn't feel like I got a sufficient answer or an answer at all. So I'd like to rephrase it and ask it again. And just because you say something doesn't make it true. So you are painting us a very pretty picture today by choosing what facts you share with us. But what you're trying to sell us is a bill of goods. And I think it's pretty clear that Gorham isn't buying it. So my question is, I want the town managers or someone from the MTA or someone from the DOT to show us one example from any town or city in this country where a new highway project went in and traffic was alleviated in the local road network nearby that highway. I want one example where a new highway helped make local streets function better by creating rooms for buses, bicyclists, and pedestrians by taking cars off smaller roads. You can't do it because it doesn't happen that way. I understand why it seems like a seductive idea, but it is simply not what has happened in town after town after town after town in this country for the last 80 years. There is no evidence and no experience of what you claim this project being able to do for Gorham having happened anywhere else. I read that building more roads to prevent congestion is like a fat man loosening his belt to prevent obesity. Simply said, you build for cars, you get cars. So my question is, can someone here tonight or from whatever agency you're from whatever town you're from, show me one highway in one town that does what you claim yours will do to help Gorham?
So I won't speak on behalf of either the DOT or Turnpike Authority. I'll let them speak for themselves. I'm happy to provide you with a couple of examples. I'm also happy to get back to you with a more lengthy list of examples. Strong example of addressing the ability to make places more walkable, more amenable by reducing traffic. Belfast, Maine, the Route 1 bypass around downtown Belfast has allowed that community to revitalize and grow and develop by doing exactly what the Gorham Connector is proposed to do, which is moving traffic out of downtown. I understand you disagree. That's okay. You've asked for an example. 101 in New Hampshire, level of a congestion along 101A that existed prior to the construction of Route 100 was crippling the ability for people to get in and out of their driveways, to be able to move safely and efficiently. The 101 bypass was able to do that. So I'm happy to provide a number of examples. My counterparts at either DOT or the Turnpike Authority can do that. It is not an answer that comes with a yes every time. So I get the skepticism. I understand the skepticism. But yes, there are very real and strong examples right here in Maine, right here in New England, that are addressing the question that you're asking. So Dale, I don't know if you want to address anything, but you've asked a question. Hopefully I've answered the question. Happy to provide more examples if that's an opportunity.
So I will just speak to the Gorham bypass that was built. So before that was built, William Henry Drive, Turan Drive were the de facto bypass down through Weeks Road. So those neighborhoods handled all the traffic that's currently on the bypass for residential commuters. The downtown area handled the truck traffic. So coming down 25, if someone wanted to go south, they would take a right on 114 south. And then those bollards and things in the downtown took a tremendous hit because that intersection wasn't made to handle truck traffic. Once that bypass went in, we talked to people on William Henry Drive. It was like instant relief. As soon as that road was built, those neighborhoods can now function. The kids can now walk in the neighborhood. They can walk to the middle school now and feel safe, where before, because of the number of cars there, they didn't feel safe. The other thing is when we removed the truck traffic that was taking that right turn going south, the town was able to go in and start doing pedestrian improvements in the downtown. So last year we went in and did angled parking. There's more pedestrian crossings to allow people to treat Gorham Village like a village. Without getting the traffic removed off of those roads, we wouldn't have that ability to do those improvements because of the need for truck traffic to utilize those routes. So it's a give and take of new capacity, pedestrian improvements in our growth areas and village, as well as transit. It all has to work together.
It's fine. We'll talk about it another time. It's a disingenuous comparison.
You know,
Right,
everybody
right.
here is talking about Smiling Hill Farm and that's wonderful. I love Smiling Hill Farm. But it's going to impact my yard too. It's going to 300 feet behind my house. All the people on Running Hill Road. Yeah, I mean, the traffic isn't that bad. The environmental impact, it just isn't worth it. This shouldn't even be thought about.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Harold Elliott, by the way.
My name is Judy Weymouth, and I live in Leamington. I lived in Buxton for over 40 years. Before that, okay, I'm sorry, I've never done this before. This handout, Gorham Connector Project Summary Technical Memo. Gorham Connector will result in unavoidable adverse effects to wetlands and non-significant, whatever that means, vernal pools. Compensation for these adverse effects will occur via a robust and multifaceted mitigation plan currently being developed and will focus on local actions that apply local, regional, and statewide environmental priorities. And I guess that this includes the land swap proposal that was on the screen that you take away from the Knights Farm and you're going to give them a prize in exchange. Wetland mitigation is a feel-good project. It's a sop to people like me who don't want to see this kind of devastation happen. And I feel for the people that have lost their houses or are going to, even if they don't lose their houses, they're going to have to live near this. It's not just all about the little hoppy toads and spotted salamanders, but this bothers me because you can't mitigate a wetland and expect the animals that lived in it and around it to move a half a mile somewhere else because you dug a hole and allowed the water table to fill up the bottom of the hole. It's a feel-good sop for us. And I feel like the promises, maybe that's too strong of a word, of walking trails and bike paths and so forth are also a sop to make this easier for us to swallow. And I would, one more comment, this is not us, but the thing about Belfast, I'm old enough to remember that when you drove through Belfast, the smell from the poultry processing plant was enough to gag a goat. And when the plant closed, Belfast lost a taxpayer, it lost a big employer, but that's when the gentrification began. I don't think it had a whole lot to do with the bypass around Belfast proper. I think it's because the harbor doesn't smell like rotten chicken guts anymore. Ditto the money machine in Westbrook. People complained about the paint peeling off their houses. They couldn't open their windows in the summertime. They lost a lot of employees and a lot of money when the mill closed. I mean, it's for all intents and purposes closed. It's got a pittance of the previous number of employees. But now people don't mind to live in Westbrook. People can't afford to live in Westbrook because they couldn't afford to live in Portland. And now Westbrook is the newer, slightly lower cost place to live. It's not just the bypass. It's what drives people away from a community because their environment doesn't smell good or it's not safe to live in. Thank you.
Anybody else? If you don't speak in the microphone, we can't hear you either. So
I want to know how much blasting.
Oh, blasting. I was hearing glass. Sorry.
Ray, would you like to answer the question around where blasting might occur? But again, we're talking about the proposed route, so.
Sure. So yes, there is potential that there will be some blasting required on the project, but those are in isolated areas where we've already done some preliminary subsurface or geotechnical investigations. It's not everywhere, and frankly, these days we have the requirements of the specifications required to make sure that those are done in proper ways to protect the area around those blasted areas.
What's a proper way?
Monitoring and understanding pre and post blast surveys, for example. So the activities are done so that it doesn't have detrimental impact to the adjacent areas.
Won't have any?
That's the intent. No. Sure. All right, so one of the areas that we anticipate is around the Running Hill Road area and then adjacent to the interchange. The other area that we anticipated is where the connector crosses the Brackett Road. We anticipate we're going to lower Brackett Road so that we have a proper crossing of the connector over Brackett.
More, you have more more specificity?
She had also asked about the water and the runoff, where that would be diverted. She asked about where it would go, Casco Bay, where it's going eventually.
So I spoke about this earlier, is that's part of the process moving forward is assessing water quality and ensuring that the project properly influences what we're doing with water as it runs off the project. So that will be assessed as we advance the proposed route.
You don't know currently. You haven't assessed it yet?
I'm saying we will assess it, and we know that we will make every effort to provide proper water quality as a result of the project.
Hi, I just have a quick question. Has a study been done about all the traffic? Because most of the traffic comes from out of town. It doesn't come from Gorham. It comes from Standish, Buxton, Hollis, Baldwin, Keezer Falls, all them. Has any studies been done about to divert the traffic from up that way someplace else so it doesn't have to come down 25 or come down 22 to all congregate in the center of Gorham?
Yes, so what we understand from our traffic analyses over time up until current is that actually, in fact, a large proportion of the traffic that wants to go through this area can't. We see traffic from Hollis and Buxton that magically works its way down a 112 in Saco and gets on the turnpike and heads north because that's their fastest way to getting to South Portland, to their jobs, to shopping. One of the realities is that people are traveling so far to avoid this area. It's, as again, I think as we're hearing from a lot of the folks, it's creating challenges in different places. So, ma'am, you are correct. The problem with this area isn't the people that live in this area. The problem is the fact that people that are living west, the communities to the west, are the fastest growing communities in this state. Because we're trying to address the problem in the fact that we don't want people to have to drive a long way out of their way. We'd like for them to be able to go safely and efficiently in as reasonably a straight line as we can. And if we ask people from Standish, Buxton, and Hollis to go to Saco to get to Portland, I'm not sure that's the question we're trying to address. We do. It's called exit 36 in Saco on the main turnpike. So yes, there is. But again, the challenges that are bubbling down there are a big part of what's happening up here. So I get your point. It's nice if you didn't have to deal with things from people that are west of you, but they're the ones, the gentleman who spoke earlier with the orange hat, he's having to live out in those communities because that's where he can afford to live, but he's working where the jobs are in Portland. So we're trying to, again, try to move them safely and efficiently from where they're living to where they're trying to go to work. Love to think that this could create an opportunity for more affordable housing. Couldn't agree with the statement that that is so overlooked tremendously.
Did you get that?
I did. The question I understood, make sure I got it,
Yeah,
is
so
that
if anybody's going to worry about this divider, it should be Standish because their home values are going to go up, property values are going up, and we're going further and further and out.
and again, don't disagree with you 1 cent. That is why that part of this answer has to be looking at, again, can the connector at its connection points create an opportunity for more affordable housing? If there's a way to do that as part of this,
You're driving the cost up
it's
by
all,
putting
it's,
this divider in.
it's already happening, sir. Again, the data speaks for itself. Why those communities to the west are growing is already happening. The connector isn't driving that. But again, if we think about this as a collective solution, can part of this discussion be, what do we need to do to advance? Please let me finish. What can we do to advance things that might help this to work together?
But
Please.
putting a divider in is like putting steroids on housing in those rural areas. It's just going to make people unaffordable housing in those areas. So you're not helping it, your affordable housing, you're making it worse.
I just want to say, so this is getting into a complicated discussion.
That you can't answer.
Well, yes,
Yes.
actually.
Yes, actually we can. And again, the challenges that are being presented have nothing to do whether the connector is present or not. And whether the connector is present or not, Yep. If we take the mindset of doing nothing else other than taking care of the road. Again, I don't disagree with you, sir. I think there needs to be a real strong look at how do we make housing affordable everywhere. So, but again, if we don't address this, it's simply only going to get worse. So again, I don't disagree with you. Property values are going to increase. That also increases the need for more affordable housing. So I appreciate the comment. Yes, so there have been several comments tonight around sprawl. Will the connector increase sprawl? A woman over here had some very good comments. I do want to direct folks to the Turnpike website, mainturnpike.com, and the Gorham Connector area. We've just recently placed an indirect land use effects study, a very detailed, a very thoughtful study around if you build the connector, what happens? Does it fill up immediately? Does it create massive levels of sprawl? I encourage you to read it. I think you will be encouraged by the findings. Again, the underlying assessment here is there are a lot of other factors that are contributing to the problem today. That doesn't just mean we can overlook those problems.
So I think, okay, let me just, and then unless we have any other substantial new ideas, I think maybe it's probably getting close to folks' bedtime. Okay, you first, and then we'll go back to you.
One, who paid for that study? For that land use study? Was it the MTA?
Yes. And that means?
And that means that it's likely biased because their funds were coming from the entity that wants to put this in.
Yep.
But my second.
So
the second point is, did that study take an effect that going through Smiling Hill could lead to Smiling Hill not being a farm anymore and turning into another cookie cutter subdivision? No, probably not.
Not directly. It looked at the area and land available that was impacted, not directly, but yes, so. Question over here.
Yeah, I want you to speak a little more about the ledge that you're going to be blasting on Running Hill Road that you said that there might be a possibility of that. I know damn well you're going to be blasting ledge on Running Hill Road and a lot of it.
And
How much are you going to blast? 50 feet, 50 feet deep, 100 feet deep? Because it's about 100 feet you're going to have to go.
Yep. Easy. The answer right now is we don't know because we're still working on the proposed route. But yes, as Ray has indicated, they are looking to blast ledge on the lower edge of Running Hill Road near the intersection with Spring and Cummings.
Yeah, you've already got the turnpike spur down there, already started to Spring Street. You know, you've had that there for 3 years, and you know you're going to blast ledge. Don't say you propose, there's a possibility that you're going to blast ledge.
No,
You're going to blast 100 feet of ledge.
I
100 feet
misunderstood
deep,
you.
all the way across Running Hill Road.
Yeah, I misunderstood your question, sir. I'm sorry. I was in terms of the quantity. Yes, ledge will need to be blasted at the southern end of Running Hill Road. No question. No question. We are
right.
blasting ledge at the end of Running Hill Road. That's what I
Thank-
said.
Thank you.
Not sugarcoating it here, sir. Thank you for your comment.
All right. All right. I think on that note, we're going to close this meeting. Thank you, everybody.